Right, this is going to be episode 81 of Summoning Insight. We've got the old gang back together again. I know what you're thinking is like, come on, man, can you really do Summoning Insight again for Worlds? And one of the hosts hasn't even watched the game in ages and just doesn't know what he's talking about. But that's actually quite rude. I've done a whole show with Loco for an entire year just because Monty's...
I can't believe you guys roped me into this again. But nice to be here in the fully produced version of the 9 Summoning Insight. Hope you guys enjoy.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
That wasn't, of course, the real intro to what is now going to be called the 9's Summoning Insight, presented by AT&T, because we got it like that now. We're not just in Skype anymore. We're not just in boxes. We're going outside the box now, Monty. That's the thing. So, in case people are wondering, don't worry, we're going to get with the usual thing where we don't introduce the guests and all the hosts immediately. Keep that tradition alive. So, in case you're wondering what's going to happen today with this lovely, cheesy American music from the elevators, the show schedule, we're going to be on each day from 2 p.m. Pacific Daylight Savings Time or whatever it is, 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Savings Time. If you're in Europe, that's 11 p.m. start, so get your cocoa ready, stay around for that one. In terms of what's coming up on today's show, we're going to have GoldenGlue. Remember that guy who used to play for Cloud9? Doesn't really anymore, but whatever, he'll tell us about people who do play for Cloud9. We'll have him at some point. You can see I didn't book that guest. We've also got the let me think, I think it's called the Click Debate, presented by Puma segment, where we will actually debate which the best region is for Worlds. Ooh, I wonder which way Monty might go on that one. We'll see. We'll tease that one though. Don't give anything away yet, guys. Later on, we'll also have IWillDominate, everyone's famous Twitch streamer / drama magnate, I would maybe say. Recently been over in Europe. That was actually Loco who got that one.
Famous Mark Merrill insulter.
Also, actually, I kind of relate to IWillDominate because he carries a different show with Loco. I carry, obviously Listen Loco. He carries Face Check, a show that no one watches, quite frankly. So, and then finally, we will also have group predictions. So we'll put our money where our mouth is, as it were. We'll make a few bets. We'll see who thinks who's getting out there. We'll see if Thorin believes in Fnatic again. Not really making that much hype out for the predictions on this one. But we'll see how it goes. And don't forget, if you want to join in all the fun and ask us some questions, because we're going to have a call-in segment later, where any plebeian like you out there, any normal person who, in the movie Charlie and Chocolate Factory, you had to win a golden ticket. You just have to go onto the Discord here, Cloud9 Discord, submit your questions there. We'll take the best one, I think. I'm not really one doing it. There's a questions channel as well where you can go and do this. And then at some point, someone will magically appear on the screen. We'll talk with them. Probably be mildly condescending, depending on which sets of the people. So.
We will insult you unless you share our opinions, as usual. So we will do, at the end of the show, the call-in. So we've got a bunch of stuff for you guys. This is still going to be the meat and potatoes, long-form discussion, so don't worry about that. But we're doing some really fun stuff that we couldn't do before this show was fully produced. So it's gonna be a good time.
Like physically hurt each other this time?
Yeah, because exactly, we can actually chase each other around the set if we need to, which is, been necessary at times when you decide to leave the room and we can't talk to you anymore. We can actually just drag you right back into your chair.
I mean, I'm half expecting just from this stage setup that we're going to have some scene where Loco's like Tom Cruise, who he was on Oprah that time, just bouncing up and down on a couch somewhere, like going crazy about everything, He looks too smart, actually. That's the one thing. We should just stick with like what we normally wear, I always wear Cloud9 because I big up the good teams, No TSM, of course.
They literally said, show up in a dark dress shirt. I'm the only one that followed the instructions.
They weren't going to tell me off for wearing a Cloud9 shirt, were they? That's not exactly reasonable.
So, one thing I want to talk about is you got in last night, and we had an interesting experience because we were at my house and we were watching Tombstone, and the movie from the early 90s with Kurt Russell, the Western.
What's the tie-in here? Is that another thing that lasts about 2 hours that sounded really great with a great cast, but was ultimately underwhelming in execution, Monty? Where you going with this?
So the story is, the tie-in is that I've been spending a lot of time watching League of Legends VODs since the Overwatch League season ended. And much like Tombstone, we had this very rosy memory of Tombstone with all these, great actors. Val Kilmer absolutely crushing it as Doc Holliday in that movie. So we were sitting there, And just like in this Worlds, we have a great cast of players that we've all seen and remember fondly from before. But while I was watching the games, it just didn't. The execution wasn't what I remembered from League of Legends.
It's not as
All
clean.
It's not as clean. You don't have that same level of macro play anymore. So in a way, the rotations. In a way, I'm just
Get them
saying
all in early.
the Tombstone movie experience that we didn't really enjoy. I feel like was similar to my experience of watching League of Legends these days with a great cast, but maybe not the best execution.
Now, Loco, you probably love League of Legends, where people are just like even Western players are considered good. You probably love that, right?
Yeah, I mean, the game focus changed from mid-game, like team fighting, to early game skirmishes, plating, Rift Herald. There's so much changes into the game where early game and having control matters so much more than let's scale up to this point where we can get our items and we're going to fight in like 3 items. It's no longer this gentleman's agreement of like no rush until 20 minutes.
I like no rush until 20 minutes. I like the tactical, but we'll get into that, I'm sure, a little bit later. We should talk about, obviously, we're going to do a little bit of discussion here about something that I did think was really cool that Riot released, which is the World Song, right?
I can't even believe this is real. You know what? I'll just tell everyone a very quick anecdote, right? When we actually lived in Korea, when I lived in Seoul as well, and Monty was obviously there as a caster, he once actually sent me a message on my phone. This is a private conversation. He just said, "Would you like to come and see Imagine Dragons play tonight? We can probably go backstage." And I just said, "No." That was it. Just left it at that. Like, no interest whatsoever. Don't care. It's not like prog rock from the 70s. Not my stuff. So I already know I'm going in. I'm not going to like this
Where
song.
was my invite, Monty? I was probably already in Korea at that time.
You were coaching a team called TSM at the time. I don't know if you remember that period.
Oh, yeah,
in our
so I had
lives.
VIP
Got a bit
access
awkward.
already.
Yeah,
I had
exactly.
VIP access already. Actually.
Got a bit awkward.
I'm not really into the music of any of the World songs, to be clear. So when I say the World song was cool, I don't mean that I
video, I assume.
I think the video is cool. And what I like about the video is all of the callbacks to other tournaments. Just like, I wasn't really into the song Rise, but I thought the animation and like all of the
Yes, that
history
was a
of
pretty
Rise
cool
was
one. Yeah, I
super
agree.
sick.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed that about this one too. And in a way, I appreciated that the music was not super hype. It was more like introspective and contemplative, and it focused me more on like the animation and of these players that are sort of like coming back, like the whole Phoenix concept rising from the ashes.
It does feel like an anime intro or something, doesn't it? Like the music.
Yeah.
even.
Yeah, so I think in that way it was successful. And I think if you're Riot, just building off of the huge stars that you have in these different regions, like Faker and Rookie, is really smart.
Yeah, so it's a lot of callbacks to previous World Tournament and where they failed the most. So Cap's 2018 finals, game 1 versus IG, he picked Aurelia, he got absolutely wrecked. Faker with Karma in 2017 finals versus SSG Samsung, where they also got 0-3. Rookie actually won his game on Lissandra in 2015. It was versus Cloud9, but still that team bombed. They were one of the better Chinese teams, but they didn't even make it out of groups.
Right. So I just like having these like, I also like kind of the mirror image of the champions. I'm gonna call them heroes like 20 times during this show, by the way. The champions, because it shows like more of an internal battle. I'm just saying like I like this one because it felt more introspective than some of the other songs. And the
I think the
animation.
tie into here's the thing I like about it is the idea that like if you were a super fan and you're watching it, you get like a little bit of extra street cred because you can say all the things Loco said. Oh, I remember that's the game where he played this champion. Oh, it's your friend, he plays this one. That's why they've kind of characterized him in that way. That angle's pretty cool. Yeah, I'll give you that.
Yeah, so I just like the symbolism in the way that I like OGN intro symbolism. So it's just fun to have a game that has enough history now to do all these kind of callbacks. Like it takes years before you can really like get in deep with all these different moments from these players' careers.
Yeah, there's like small details, like Faker when he's doing the press conference, all the mic covers, like it's Korean journalist outlets like Inven, Osen, Fomos. And then like with Caps, you'll see crown breaking because EU loves to play up on that like new kings versus old kings. So that's why you have like crowns breaking whenever you're watching Caps. And then in the subway, like if you zoom in, yeah, that's the Cloud9 logo. Because in their group, there was Cloud9 and AHQ. So there's an AHQ logo also somewhere.
Nice. Oh, here's the mics you're talking about. Yeah, Fomos. Yeah, I see it. Yeah, I think that the attention to detail is really cool. And even if you don't necessarily like the music, I think it's fun. So, That's it. We had to talk about it because everybody was talking about the world's music. Shakarez as well was the one who pointed out a lot of this on Twitter. Obviously, a long time, huge, professional contributor to the League of Legends community.
And Twitter analyst.
And summoning insight guest
Many
previously,
times,
many times. So that was a lot of his research going into that. So we also are going to kick things off with some statistics presented by Bing, courtesy of Microsoft. And we're going to look at a couple C9 players, because we're going to get into C9 a little bit later in the show, obviously. It is C9's show. We will be talking about their groups later on, especially with IWillDominate. But if we look at these career perspectives of Jankos and Svenskeren, and both of these guys were the MVPs of their respective regions in NA and LCS. What are you looking at, Loco?
I mean, I see the career win percentage, and I'm like, that just means were you on a good team throughout your career or not? And Svenskeren used to be on the good SK and then TSM and Cloud9. That's definitely going to boost your win rate.
He also played in NA, as you said, for Cloud9 TSM, which were perennially really good teams. Whereas actually, for people who don't know, the interesting thing about Jankos teams was, even though they would often get to the semis of Europe, etc., they were very rarely the best actual team. Like maybe the H2K lineup had the players to do it. Obviously, G2 now is amazing, but yeah, I think he's been through a lot more hard times, I would say, than Svenskeren overall. The first half of his career was a lot of grinding out the rough times,
Even before H2K, he was on Rocket, which wasn't a very good team. They had spicy games, and they took games off of good teams, but I don't remember them doing much.
Well, even H2K's peak was making semis at Worlds, but they got kind of that free ticket into the semifinals. They got super lucky in the bracket draw. So we also can take a look here at Nisqy and Caps, which, of course, Nisqy.
What sort of comparison is that? Like an ant to a god? What even is that?
So an ant to a god. Nisqy here coming in with Envy originally, and then transitioning over to C9 after Jensen has left. And Caps, of course, now rising to superstardom on G2.
Yeah, I mean, it is worth pointing out, to be fair, Cloud9 obviously not a slow-paced team, so actually the stats are all looking pretty good there. The problem obviously is, again, they play in totally different regions. You'd expect everything to be a little bit pumped up. Like I think average kills for Caps makes a lot of sense if you think about how much the G2 team likes to fight, even if they're behind. It's the IG mentality, you just fight your way out of it, whereas Cloud9, I'd say they're between the two. They can brawl a bit, but they also sometimes play a little bit more structured, so I think just reasonable in line with where their teams are. In terms of the champion aspect, probably the more interesting detail, because people know Caps plays a lot of different champions, especially because if you're on G2, that's just one of the things the team's famous for. But actually Nisqy, before he came to NA, was known for quite a small champion pool, actually. I think that's kind of one of the things that he's flexed a bit this year and kind of shown off a bit, right?
He used to be almost like a pure mage player. I remember he was very famous on Zoe, but this year he picked up a lot of these flex champions that are more bruisery. Akali, Irelia, Sylas, even though Sylas is technically a mage, he plays more. He has a very bruiser playstyle.
He was definitely a soy abuser. He had to eventually earn an honest living and learn how to play League of Legends.
I'm actually surprised he only has a 50% win rate on Syndra, because back when he was on Envy, that was one of his big picks that he was famous for, and we saw a lot of bans against Nisqy for that.
If it's to champion he played a lot on Envy, then he's going to have a lower win rate.
It's true. It's true. It's true. So that's taking a look at some of our statistics, but let's get into some of the meat of the show and bring in GoldenGlue. Grayson, of course, coming in to chat to us, and everybody going to move around in chairs.
Oh, yeah, we have to move over.
Nice to see you, man.
Thank you for all the nice words earlier.
Let's see if I can count some more now.
What up, Grayson?
It's good to be here. No, this is pretty cool. And I was getting kind of heated, watching you guys talk about the World song and saying you guys weren't interested, because that's just my baby. I love the World songs. This year, it was pretty good. I really like the animation, like you guys were saying, in the history.
Yeah.
But Rise was just perfection.
The problem is we're coming from different perspectives. I'm trying to watch it as an industry professional. You're a fan. You just enjoy it. You're getting hyped for Worlds. You want to watch Worlds. I get it. Listen with different guys.
What you said was completely right. The casual fans do enjoy the song.
Same joke as me, but about 5 seconds later, you'll see that'll be the formula for a lot of the show. We've got our double act down amazingly, So, well done, Loco. Yeah, nicely done, mate. It's the exact same joke. It's exactly the same joke. Whatever. Anyway, welcome to the show.
I was going to say the joke first, but you went before me.
Right, here's the thing. Because this isn't a normal TV show where you all have to be super polite, right? I'll just say straight up, a lot of the questions we're going to ask.
Are you ever super polite?
If I'm in customs going into a country, I'm incredibly polite. You won't believe that. I never put a foot wrong. I'm saying everything I'm not even lying about it. No, the thing is, right, a lot of the questions people want us to ask, right, are going to be things where you kind of have to, be on Cloud9's side. So, for example, people are going to want to know a classic Cloud9 narrative for Worlds is Sneaky has the Worlds buff, right? He always performs better in Worlds. Now, obviously, this year he's had a lot of criticism, especially this last split. It's one of the few times I've even seen like the desks themselves were really going in on him. So, coming into this Worlds, a lot of people are going to wonder: is that a narrative that ends this time?
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to say before the games actually start, and we didn't get like a glimpse of it in play-ins like we did last year. But I mean, it's pretty true. Sneaky is like very consistent when it comes down to the important matches, and that's like part of the reason why he's been like around so long, and he's been such a valuable player to Cloud9.
Kind of like deceptively good internationally if you look at his whole career.
Yeah. I think Cloud9 did a tweet the other day about like his stats over Worlds and like the amount of times he's made it to like past groups, and he's like actually the most consistent Western player at any international or at Worlds. Exactly. So I think that's a really cool stat, since a lot of people kind of they like to crap on Sneaky. It'd be like Sneaky in lane, Omega lol, that kind of stuff. And I think he gets underrated a lot when you compare him to like Doublelift, and everyone's just like, oh, Doublelift's so good. But then at Worlds, he never makes it out of groups. So
another huge narrative for Cloud9 is usually Jensen overperforms at Worlds, but this time you guys don't have Jensen. Did he play that big of a role beforehand?
I would definitely say if you looked at the quarterfinals match last year against Africa Freaks, he really freaked it. Like he was playing LeBlanc, and he was monstrous. He was solo killing his lane opponent, and he was really carrying those games. I would say though, I don't know if that's the total narrative, because in play-ins, he didn't play as well in play-ins, and we almost lost the Gambit. We went to 5 games with play-ins and Gambit. So he definitely does have those moments where he'll really shine, but I think maybe people might nitpick those moments and just make that the whole narrative for the whole Worlds, when that might not necessarily be true.
Okay, then why does Cloud9 do so well where the first seed usually
is it Reaper?
TFM?
Yeah, no, it's definitely, it's got to be the Red Bull that they drink before every match. I think that's what really
Here's the thing, it could be Reaper though, and here's why. Here's the real reason why it could be Reaper, because a best of one is like game 1 of a series. He never does the bad draft on game 1. He at least gets the lead. He wants like a 2-1 lead or 2. That's when he starts throwing in all the 200 IQ drafts. So in best of ones, you're safe. He'll probably draft correctly. They'll probably do well. Maybe not. This group's a bit hard.
I mean, the thing that I find interesting about Reaper as a coach, because you're talking about his drafts over the course of the series, is he was always so uniquely brilliant at the game, and he was so incredibly. Loco's face is incredible right now. Loco's not buying this at all. But
what was that time he smashed this rubbish Mig Frost team in a?
You mean he smashed Woong? We won bot lane that finals. I am not going to stand for this.
All I'm going to say is one game you had about 5 kills. You didn't do anything with it on the map whatsoever.
Oh my God, there was a Fed Wukong jumping on top of me.
I won't do the obvious joke.
don't do that. Don't do that.
A lot of in-jokes on the show.
But going back to Reaper, I mean, he was using a lot of the early jungle items in the top lane to get some pretty serious advantages, and having casted him in Korea, he was playing the game in very weird ways. And so sometimes I wonder if, Reaper makes decisions that only Reaper can execute on.
I definitely think that's true. Yeah. A lot of times, Reaper will do things that, I mean, okay, for even an example, a personal example from last year when I subbed in versus Team Liquid, right? I think we started off the season really poorly in the summer split. And then we subbed in Blabber and Jensen back in, and then they went on an 8-game win streak, something ridiculous. And then our hardest match of the game, they sub back in me and Dennis. And it's just why would you sub in the team when you're on a hot streak? Why would you change it? And then we come in and we destroyed Team Liquid, and it works out. And no one, all the analysts, everyone's saying what are you doing, Reaper? Why do you make this change? And Reaper's just 400 IQ over here. I had this all planned the whole time. So that's kind of how it usually is, yeah.
Well, it's also that you guys had 3 rookies on your team last year, and you still ended up making it into the top 4 at Worlds and causing the huge upset against Africa. So how much of the last year do you think was that coaching to do you think him benching people put them in a different headspace in order to
put Jensen in Team Liquid,
light a fire under their ass?
Just saying, guys. Just saying.
Yeah, it puts Smoothie on a different team too.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, it definitely showed that you listen to Reaper if you don't want to get benched. That's one thing it showed. I definitely think it changed the mentality of practice, I would say, and it made people less complacent. And I do think he has a lot of things that are unique to him, and it's kind of it's either moments of brilliance or it fails. So it's generally one of the two. And there's been a lot of moments of brilliance, so that's what it's been pretty good.
Do you have them getting out of groups this time? It's
Well,
Griffin and G2.
I'm hopeful. And my pickems, I put them at second. So like my goal is like, I think no matter what, like I think G2 is like insane. I put them at number 1. And then like I'm hoping Griffin will choke. Like that's the win condition right now for Cloud9 to get out of groups, because the group is really hard.
I mean, it's not really unreasonable, right? Because
It's not.
in the summer part of LCK, like Thorin.
Keep going. Let him finish the point. Go on.
So they did tail off, I think, as the year went on. They were not as strong as they were in spring, and then they keep getting these buys into the finals, right? So in pressure situations, they haven't really delivered. So I'm not saying it's likely, guys.
Sure.
I'm just saying it's not entirely outside of the realm of possibility.
It's the evolution of
There you
just
go.
tilt them.
It is in a way, isn't it? The problem with that is, so basically the solution is if Cloud9 can just turn up like SK Telecom from this year in a finals, then no problem. Yeah, you probably just sweep them easy, just get them out of there. And our problem is that, SK Telecom, and then there's the other angle, which is surely that plays in your advantage. Griffin amazing until they get to the big playoff game. Normally they're fine when they're just kind of cool, in the round robin stage. So I kind of feel like people have overblown that narrative personally. I actually think it is Cloud9 who has the pressure on them because, like as you say, some people are giving them this like outside chance. Hey, maybe they can make it through. Maybe even over G2. Obviously, they drop games sometimes. So I actually think it's a bit harsh because for me, I think I'm going to have those as like big favourites to get out of the group. There's a world in which Cloud9 can do it, but I think it's a bit unreasonable even to expect them to. They kind of have to show you, I think, before you can buy into that one.
Do you agree that it's G2 at number 1 and Griffin that drops out if Cloud9 ever makes it in?
I think I'll answer that later in the section where we show which we picked for our pickems local.
Fair enough. Let's talk about the draw in general. How do you feel about the methodology of the draw? Because I feel as though over time, when it started, people didn't hate the group draws as much as they do
There also
now.
wasn't as much discussion about it. We didn't really discuss formats. We just accepted it, didn't we? It's whatever it is, yeah.
Well, I think at the time, though, it was more reasonable in a way because there was less competition from other regions, whereas I think that part of this is the rise of some of these other regions, not into top echelon status, but into at least like capable of making the top 16 at Worlds, even if they're the 16th best team in this tournament, has like changed the perception of how the seeding should operate. Because in this case, obviously the big talking point is that Splice got into this group, which is infinitely easier than Fnatic's group, despite being a worse team.
Being as I've done this rant many, many times, I know how it works already. So here's the basic gist of the problem with the way that the groups are done, which means you end up with a group like Group B, where actually, like if FPX doesn't win that group, you have to wonder what's going on with them as a team. Like it's such a ridiculous easy group. Meanwhile, you look at some of the other number 1 seeds. So Team Liquid's a number 1 seed, and they get a group where actually most people don't even favour them to get out the group. So the real problem for me is the pool system treats the 3rd seed from China and from Korea as though they're literally as good as any team from like Vietnam as you see here. And like, I think you'd be pushing the envelope out a little bit to say that any consensus among experts would ever put GAM at the same level as IG, as RNG, etc. And so unfortunately, if you treat them as though they're equal, you can have a group where that could have been IG instead of, FPX obviously would be there. It could have been a Korean team, obviously, instead. It could have been Griffin instead of GAM there. So that's part of the problem with how you do the system, isn't it?
It's not even that they're equal, though. GAM is literally automatically seeded in, and the other 3rd place teams besides the Chinese team this year are not. So it's actually worse to be not the top team from Vietnam.
So they had this thing where, depending on your last 2-year performance, like the minor regions can start earning spots in like the major region or like the pool 2 seeds. And depending on how you do as a major region for the 2-year course, like you can get dropped out and you can lose your 1st place seeding. So in a sense, they did earn it, but
who's making these decisions, by the way?
There's someone, one of my friends, Daniel, who I do another show with, he told me there's someone at Riot that does, like his full-time job is figuring out formats. So there is someone who...
Just hit.
Oh my God, fire that person!
With the hood, just sitting there like, what format shall I do for next season?
No, I guarantee, right? As soon as he sees my tweets every year where I'm like, these groups are absolute BS, he just does that like scene from Watchmen where the Ozymandias guy goes, I did it! In front of all those monitors, and he just knows that he's tilted us all. He just tilted us. That was the actual secret. Just tilt the analysts.
I like how there's just one shadow person whose job is to come up with this extremely questionable format that they haven't changed for years. But I suppose that kind of makes sense.
And no one knows who it is. That's the funnier part. It's like some mysterious, like Illuminati figure controlling. That's hilarious. I don't really spend much time actually thinking about formats as a player, since it's not something that really you have any control over. It's just like, you're going to compete and you're going to put it in whatever format, whatever bracket, and then you just have to play. So that's an interesting thought.
You don't think some of the groups are like, oh my god, why are we in this group? Like Reckless had his infamous crying rant. What is it?
Here's the thing, Loco. He would have thought that if Cloud9 had been in Fnatic's group. Now he might be going, I don't know. The way these groups are done is interesting, but.
No, it's different as in I have no idea of what solution or other.
Right.
I have nothing valuable to add to the conversation besides that doesn't look good. That's all I've got.
I have a question for you.
I do. Here you go.
Go on.
We have these groups of 4. We can run the GSL, the classic StarCraft system, which is a double elimination group of 4, and then we can seed them into the bracket, the top 8 teams, and do a double elimination bracket in the top 8, and then we can stop having bad grand finals in low worlds.
I would like to have some better grand finals. That's definitely. I feel like that's always the most disappointing thing is when the grand finals is the 3-0, and it's happened so many times. Like when I was able to watch the SKT versus Samsung live and at LA, and that was went to game 5, 2-0, then almost reverse sweeped, and that was one of the most hype, exciting events I've ever been to.
I mean, for me, the real shame is that we don't even get rematches. Think about 2016 when we had that incredible match between SKT and the Tigers. And that was just such an amazing match. And we could have seen it again in the finals. We could have seen it twice. I wanted to see that twice.
Yeah.
I always thought, actually, League especially, because obviously in my native game of CSGO, people have the same discussion, why isn't the major double elim? We'd like to see the same matches. But there's even an extra reason why a game like League or a MOBA in general actually benefits from a double elim bracket, which is, obviously, you would change the whole draft strategy if you played the team a second time.
Yeah.
Based on what
that
they want.
misfortune pick that was
It would make it so
disruptive.
You'd also see exactly, did someone just have a surprise pick, or is that legit? Will they use it next time? You'd have so much gamesmanship, I feel between the coaches and even the in-game leaders.
More usage of subs, more adaptation and drafts, test you on your depth. A lot more aspects that would be tested.
Here's a question to put you on the spot, because obviously, depending on how regions we've only watched certain players. Who do you think, of players you've seen at Worlds, either so far or coming, who's the most underrated mid laner? Who's not getting the proper kind of prep? This guy's good, but you don't hear him mentioned. He's not on any of the lists.
In before Nifty.
Who do you pick? Who for you is good that you don't ever hear get the proper credit? Who do you think?
That's hard to say. I guess I'd probably go with Nemesis from Fnatic.
That's not a bad one. I didn't see him on any of the top 20 lists.
I don't feel like anybody really talks about him. And G2 versus Fnatic, they went 10 games. They played 2 BO5s. They went 10 games. He was playing versus Caps, who I would rate as number 1, top, one of the best, if not the best mid laner right now in the world.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like he was getting clobbered every game. So I'd probably give it to Nemesis, just because no one really is talking about him, and he went to 10 games with Caps. So,
what do you like most about him as a player? How would you describe his style, or why do you think he's underrated?
I would probably just say I don't know too much into detail of why I think he's underrated, because I haven't watched his whole season of LEC or anything.
You haven't been pro viewing him out of control, or
I watched pro view of Rift Rivals, and I watched him come over here in Rift Rivals, and when he came over here, he was one of the big proponents of the ADTF, and so I thought that was new and unique, and it wasn't something that was being played over in North America. And I just think the fact that you can go 10 games versus Caps and not get clobbered is enough in itself. Plus, no one's actually talking about him. Plus, I think it's hard to find an underrated mid laner at Worlds.
Yes.
It's really hard to find that, because when I'm thinking about all the
especially, come on.
Yeah, because all the mid laners at Worlds are nuts, and everyone knows they're pretty good. So.
Adding on a bit for Nemesis, when you talk Fnatic, you talk Reckless, you talk Hillsong, you talk Broxa, and the kind of 3v3s they do in mid. If your mid laner is garbage, it doesn't matter if your jungle and support is there to help you. Your mid laner has to pull his own weight for that strategy to work, constantly taking 3v3s in mid.
What does that have to do with TSM, though? Oh, sorry, man. I've got lost this, man. I thought he was being subtle. I thought I'd introduced some subtlety to the game there.
I like it. We've already bashed TSM multiple times on this show. They're not even relevant.
Should we just do a world salad segment where there should actually be like a bingo in the background, right? Where like on this screen here, every time I say like reckless, forgiven, like Froggen, it should just tick off and then someone wins a prize. Like, whoever guesses what the first 4 cliched things that I say every episode would be, a reference to Diamond Procs or something. It's like an obscure one that might get hit at the end.
Monty overrates the Korean team.
There you go. Is LS wrong about insert anything LS has said? Could be an obvious segment, right?
Oh my God, that's funny.
See, that's the thing. When we originally did this show, remember, guys, we had very structured roles. Like, I was the guy coming in from another game who's trying to learn the game. Monty's kind of taken that role now. Like, Monty was the guy who was like the most talked about analyst. Obviously, my role at this point in time. I mean, Ellis is trying to take it from me. He's probably right now composing a thing about why like Showmaker's the best like player in the entire world. So I'm probably already wrecked on that. And then Loco, he's just a Loco.
Professional experience.
That's true. To be
Both
fair,
reasons.
Loco's been fired at least 3 or 4 times. Since the last time we did that. He used to just get fired as a player. Now he's been fired from other jobs as well.
Wow.
I've been fired a lot too.
I don't know why I signed up for this.
I will say this. This is a group of people who've all been fired from their jobs, actually.
Yep.
We all used to have starting
I'm in that
positions, and you know what? Sometimes you get replaced.
Hey, I was the only one who got fired from an entire game, every position in that game.
That's impressive.
That's right.
That's cool.
But you know what? If you have great sponsors and you make great content, they can't stop you.
The problem is, though, you never wanted to play the one role that Riot actually, the one position they had available for you, which was right under their thumb. So, unfortunately, you played the role of person with a lawyer on speed dial, and they don't think you like that one. quite frankly.
They definitely don't like that.
No. And by the way, for any employees out there, this next segment's for you. It's going to be scratch and sniff. So if you've got that technology, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. It's pretty subtle, right? Kept it nice and subtle there. Loco's already regretting it. He's realising now. They should have invited you to Worlds, then you wouldn't have had this problem, would you? If you guys want to learn next year, if you invite all my guests, I can't do a show at this, can I? It's the only way we can beat. It's the only way we can beat them, Monty.
It's all right. The renegade spirit burns strong,
Exactly.
here with Cloud9 these days. So for the Worlds, we're going to talk about this a little bit later too, but we saw the top 20 from like Jat and Vedius come out. And Faker's number 1. All right. What do you think about Faker do you think he's the best mid laner in this tournament? There's been a lot of discussion. Obviously, people riding Doinb pretty hard right now as well.
Man, I hate going saying anything bad against Faker because he's like the greatest of all time. He's the GOAT. I would not say he's the best player going into this tournament. I would not put him as my number 1. He'd probably be like top 5. Like it's not like he's far from top 1. I'm like on the G2 boat where I'm like, when I watch them play, it's like, I feel like they do the aggressive style that's so meta right now of like skirmishing 24/7 and being able to see these early game fights that other teams don't see. And I think Caps is like a huge proponent of that. And I think Caps is like the best mid laner going into the tournament. But I mean, there's so much experience in winning 3 world champions and being to Worlds that many times that like, I think it'd be wrong if you didn't have Faker in your like top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay.
But I want to put him as number 1 because I feel like people do at the same time like have the rose tinted glasses where like
Of course.
season 3 Faker Zed, and like he's in the tournament, you have to put him number 1.
Wait. You're going to talk about rose-tinted glasses where you have Caps as your best
I was going to
laner?
say, like, hasn't Cat, like, I haven't, to be clear, guys, my knowledge is going to get better as this show goes on through the duration of World.
Could get worse listening to us.
Could get worse.
Yeah.
Could degrade. Probably won't, though. But, I watched a lot of these playoffs games with G2, but obviously I wasn't watching most of their games during the regular season. But my understanding is Caps, like, didn't have a great summer split.
In the finals, he didn't. Like I think in the finals against Fnatic, I think he had a bunch of games where he made a lot of misplays, but they won in spite of it. I would say for the split, he had a very good split. He was definitely one of the better players, I think.
And for Caps, people fall into love of the height of Caps, and they just completely ignore like the bottom, like the floor that he can have. Like there's games where G2 is struggling due to Caps just inting away the lead or not being like or giving up so much pressure in mid lane. I think it's so false to have him as your number 1.
Well, then I'm very sorry you feel that way.
Wait, there's straight up games where Nemesis was a better player than Caps.
Cool, they can have their opinion.
That's not an opinion. That's fact. There
I
are
don't think
straight.
that's fact. I don't think that's how that
That is
works.
definitely an opinion. I'll just corroborate that is 100% an opinion. You know, it was connected to a fact. which is that you
No, it is.
Locodoco, I was the one who invented in League of Legends my opinions being facts, okay? Well, I'm glad that someone has taken over that, right?
No, I actually kind of agree. I think the big problem for Faker, in my opinion, is like this. I actually think it's an indictment of some of the past SK Telecoms, which people used to overrate and say every player was the best at their position. That was pretty much the story every time they won. Everyone just said the support's the best and the AD carries
Bangy's the best jungle.
Guess what? We've seen some of these guys in other teams and other regions now. They're not really like the monster prodigy stud guy who's going to carry any team. So what I actually think you see is in the past teams, Faker had to kind of be like the LeBron. And he had to be the guy who carried most of the load and set everything up in the game. Whereas I think actually in the team he's got now, he's got so many amazing pieces. Sometimes he just plays the role of mid laner. Like sometimes Clid's just off doing his own thing.
And
or
Clid is
Teddy's
incredible.
the guy taking over the game and Faker's actually sort of willing to let someone carry the game. So I don't think it's necessarily a diss on him. It's definitely not his best year. But I also think it's not the role anymore. And that everything doesn't go through Faker like it used to in the old teams, you know.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely agree with that. And I just think the way that the game is played nowadays, you can't really have anybody like that. I think the competition is just too good. Like, you can't just have one guy just styling on everyone. But the one thing I do see, I see Caps do that sometimes. And it's, like, really hard to do that in current League of Legends. And, like, Caps can do that. He can just style and, like, be a monster carry. And that's, like, really rare to have nowadays. So that's what I love about him. And that's why I would put him as my number one, is I think he has, like, the highest carry potential.
I'd even say he actually has a little bit of, I know people used to call him like baby Faker, but one area he actually reminds me of Faker in is that when he plays that like super aggressive style where it's almost like you're just daring the person to gank you. You're daring this guy to go all in on you now when you've burnt your flash already. Like that style of play, if you can pull it off, is mad intimidating to the other player.
Yeah,
it kind of reminds me of Faker in that sense, you know, like he gets extra respect. Because sometimes you think in the game, why are they just ganking him here? But like they're thinking, this jungler must be there this time. Like surely he wouldn't do that four times in a row. That's kind of Faker-esque, I think. A little bit of that.
Yeah, he definitely does that. I mean, he definitely is extremely aggressive sometimes to the point where like he should have got punished there, but like sometimes he just doesn't. And sometimes he does, and sometimes he doesn't look as great as he always does.
He's willing to take it though. I've noticed he's not a guy who ever makes excuses. He just takes it on the chin if he messes up.
Yeah. And that's
you
what I
can't
like.
have to do if you're going to play that style.
I mean, he's a maniac. Like, he is an absolute maniac, and that's why, I mean, I love watching him. He's a great player.
Well, what?
Just
if you want to add any entertainment to the show, go ahead. You know, your turn.
But it's ignoring like the floor of Caps. If you have the height and the floor, you have to average it out somewhere, no?
The real thing maybe we can spin it this way, because what I would love to know, we never do this discussion about Caps though, is last team he was in, the really good Fnatic team, I mean, it's basically all these players except Nemesis. They had a bunch of very good players who were all pro. Now he's in G2, same story, all his teammates amazing. What I would really love to see is if you took modern day Caps and put him in a really tough spot. So think about like people like Upset in Schalke, where he's kind of like the only great player, you know, and he's having to do everything. I would love to know, do you think he actually would like discipline himself a bit more? Would he like clean up a lot of the like ridiculous, or do you think that's just who he is? Would he just do that in any team? Would he do that if he was in Echo Fox? Would he do it if he's in G2?
Yeah, that's hard to say. I mean, my first intuition is that he would just be a maniac anyway, because that just kind of seems like that's who he is, that's his personality, and that's like what makes him great. Like his greatness is by that, and also his faults are by that, and I think that's just who he is. And I hope he wouldn't change, because I love like seeing that level of like aggression, and honestly, it's really with the whole G2 roster. Like the whole G2 roster is right there with them. Like they're willing to go in hand and like do crazy plays, like swap roles, like do whatever they want. They'll play crazy champions. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to watching like G2 play at Worlds and watching us, you know, watch Cloud9 play against them and see how they do versus Griffin. I'm really excited.
Do you think there's any choke potential for G2? Because everyone's just raving about G2, how good they'll be. Like, they're the first team from the West that are considered favorites. Maybe like Moscow 5 in Season 2 was the only other Western team you
they
can
would
really
have been
say that
considered
about.
famous or favorite.
To be fair, there are all those maniac fans of a particular team that's like, I think it's like Orange and Black that used to think one of their teams was going to win Worlds, but listen, get people help when they have those kind of opinions, guys.
I think they definitely could drop possibly to the second seed. Like, but I don't see a world where they don't get out of the group, the play-ins, or not the play-ins, the group stage. Yeah, I think they'll for sure make it to knockout.
Wouldn't them getting knocked out in quarters be choking for G2 with the kind of expectation we have for them? Like win Worlds, make finals, it's in Europe.
Yeah. Here's the thing, I've figured it out. If G2 doesn't get out of groups, just as a team, they win the Dade Award. Because they came in, people saying they were going to win Worlds, right? So it's not impossible. If that happens, they have to as a team win it. The first ever
Five
team.
Dades?
Yeah, because that's never happened before, you know. Exactly.
We should talk about the Dade Award later on as well.
We'll set that up. There'll still be time. There's a lot of time.
Monty's very happy at the Dade.
Hey, I'm just glad it's back.
Do you know the sad thing, Monty? I mean, this is the problem. Obviously, Monty left at the end of 2016, so the last few years he's just been observing from the outside. The sad thing is, we actually did on many of the talk shows discuss years and years ago that Dade Award is no longer even the most appropriate name. It should just be called the Clay Love Award, because every year they told us the same thing, Monty. No, now he knows how to gank. Now he's going to do it, and then he would just be out in the quarters every single year. So, like Dade only did it 2 times, didn't he? Like, and he went semis 1 time. Like, actually, in the end, he looks all right, didn't he?
Well, yeah, the Dade's second trip in 2014 was obviously like
that was fine.
They lost to Samsung White,
Yeah, exactly.
and like if Samsung White hadn't been there, they would have won the tournament. And also, I think it's reasonable to think that they could even upset Samsung White, given that they had that history in 2014 of beating him every time.
Yeah.
I think if they beat Samsung White, they would have lost TSM in finals.
Well, TSM was already eliminated,
Hot take.
so
If the groups were different,
that was not possible. But
Like I said, I've heard the joke in the past. That's how good Sven Skjern is as a jungler. He even carried TSM out of groups. 1 year he didn't even go for TSM.
he was also part of that team that had that in 2014 as well. That had that ridiculous game. Well, he was banned for half the group stage, but then
blows.
But after
really
that
blows.
too, they had that ridiculous win against TSM that went down to that. It was one of the stupidest games I've ever
Great,
seen.
it was brilliant. I remember every movement. Candy Panda was tumbling around his vein, dominating the game. A real coach would have just said shut down bot, but they didn't. They let him run wild. Next thing you know, Samsung White.
But the skins are pretty good.
next topic. Is there a button for next topic?
You don't want to remember that game?
I'm okay. That was the only time TSM ever made it out of groups.
That's true. All right, so when we talk about picks right now for the mid lane, what do you think are going to be the power picks coming into Worlds? There hasn't been a major patch change, but obviously we've seen a lot of play-ins now.
Yeah, so I think the meta is pretty open right now. I think Syndra and Orianna is going to be both pretty strong picks going to Worlds. They give them both some nice quality of life, or not quality of life, but just number buffs. Syndra looks extremely strong, and as does Orianna with a new ultimate buff.
Wait, can I challenge you on the Orianna? We talked about how much early skirmishing matters and being active and being relevant, but Orianna is none of that. I feel like she's more of a team fighter than an early skirmisher.
Well, her lane phase is pretty strong. I would say Syndra is one of the champions that can bully around Orianna in lane phase, but for the most part, in a lot of matchups, Orianna can pressure lane really hard, which can let your team have the advantage or the better setup going into those early game skirmishes. And yeah, she's not the strongest champion skirmishing early, but she generally has the ability to give you a little bit more control into the early fights, I would say.
Fine versus stuff like Kiana, Akali, Sylas, the champions we see a lot.
Kiana and Sylas, well, I haven't got to play the Sylas matchup much recently. They have nerfed him a lot and changed his kit quite a bit, but typically Orianna would have pressure on Sylas, and for the Kiana has more kill pressure on any immobile mage, but Orianna still has the range advantage, so it's a give and take, I would say, of what you get.
Do you guys have any more questions for Mr. GoldenGlue?
Give it to me.
While they think about it, so you're going to Europe soon, right?
Yeah.
So is this your plan for the off season?
Pretty much, yeah. I'm hoping Cloud9 makes it to semis, because that's when I'm going for semis and finals. I'll be over there pretty much having a good time, vacationing for 2 weeks. I don't know, maybe something will pop up and I'll end up doing some kind of, if C9 makes it that far, then I'll definitely be with the team, helping them out, coaching and analyzing. But for the most part, I'm just going for fun. I think it'll be really fun. I've never actually been to Europe. I've been to London once when I played at Wembley. For some reason, Riot hold a challenger tournament there in Wembley Stadium, and I got to go there when I was 17. So I'm really excited to get to experience Europe.
So you've reversed the trend. You're going to Europe just for fun. It's a for fun region. Normally it's the other way around, you see.
Yeah, why not?
All right. So where can people find you? Your Twitter. Your stream?
Yeah. So you can follow me on Twitter at C9GoldenGlue. You can find my Twitch at just twitch.tv/GoldenGlue. And my Instagram is Grayson Gilmer. Good luck if you can spell that. And that's generally where I'm most active on my social. So if you all want to find me, that's where you'll find me.
Cool. Have fun in Europe. We're going to be looking at a hype video real quick from C9, and then we'll be back with some arguments and Puma gift certificates. So I'll see you in a couple.
It is Peke dominating 11-0-7. Fnatic are going to go through to the semi-finals, taking down the North American champions, Cloud9. It was a... Samsung Blue of hell! Whoa! It goes Superman into the back.
There is no damage, there is no base left, there is only victory for AHQ. One final dunk on the other side of the map. It's like he's playing Space Jam, and AHQ will be the final team out of Group B.
North America's last hope. You know them. It's Cloud9!
Going to be on to the Nexus. 40 minutes in, they came in hungry to book their ticket over to the Big Apple, and it looks like Samsung Galaxy will be moving on to the semifinals at Madison Square Garden.
They weather a brutal storm, and Waterley will push themselves to a historic semi-final. What the heart? Oh, they're going for it!
Oh, what a hook by Tushin! They're gonna find the way in though. The Oran's gonna come across, and the knockups are there. Is this the fight? It's 2-0, and the Guardian Angels are popped. This could well be it. Look at them clean up the map, and the last vestige of Korea has been destroyed. Cloud9 will make it to the semifinals. A 3-0 sweep, the first time in 7 years. 5v3, and the last hope for the West will be Fnatic, the kings of the West, the kings of Europe. It's going to be Fnatic looking to knock it down in the 5v3 to get those last few kills. A desperate engage and a shutdown on the Caps. A few more seconds spot, but look at the blade color. It's everyone dead. Fnatic are the kings of the West, and they will represent in the World Final.
Outside, looking at the stars, staring with my mouth wide. I ain't letting nobody stop me this time. With every single level that I reach and I climb, they ask, are you from outside? Everything around me I create with my mind. Working too hard, I don't want no downtime.
Ultimate on Starter not available, nor on Sejuani.
The Drake's gonna be taken low. Here goes Angel. I think Smithy gonna be brought very low, brought down. Now the damage coming right back into the Cloud9 lines. Licorice grabbing the kill, onto Smithy. Core JJ getting away. Double kill over to 2 Licorice, as it's also gonna be a double for Jensen. Can they find more? It looks like yes. Jensen is gone, and Licorice gets
That was just terrible. He saw him on the minions.
Well, now it's going to be more trouble for Team Liquid as Double gets himself caught out, having to pop the Summoners, getting himself away. Core JJ is going to be taken down next. The flank has arrived, and so has Cloud9. They will evaporate Team Liquid in front of their eyes.
Starting the fight. The fight is over, but if they actually fail one of those assassinations, COG has enough follow-up CC that they would be able to end the fight on the other side. Niski trying to burst out the side lane.
Down in the bottom lane, the flash to land the rest of the damage, and the solo kill comes through for Niski.
But getting killed in game 1 a number of times, now getting solo killed here early on in game 2. It has not been a series thus far.
It's not the first time COG has done this. There was another game in the split where Runa had to launch play connection, but he's going in for solo kill, trying to get Niski.
Big damage here, here comes across, almost down, Aftershock. Helping keep it alive, the re-engage.
Finds the solo kill. 4 as the whole squad is grouped up. Niski still over the wall. 4K health. In they go for the hook. A lot of damage goes Smite with the Elder buff. There's the knockup. 1 kill picked up for Cloud9, and they can 5v4. They can keep pushing forward. The flash in, a flash away, but he's still on top. PoE goes down. Making a hurt, and a push. Cloud9 has done it. The road to the finals is paved with the corpses of Counter Logic Gaming. Cloud9 are your first finalists of 2019 summer. The chance of being the #1 seed in the world. They take down CLG.
All right, this is Click Debate brought to you by Puma. So what we're gonna do is we are going to debate a topic, and you guys are going to use hashtag Puma with the region that you think is the best overall at this League of Legends World Championship in 2019, whether that's LCK, LPL, LEC.
LCS.
No
Also
one
an interesting
will think that.
tie-in, actually, because if you think Europe's the best region, you might call it Puma. But if you think NA is, then call it Puma. It's
call
one
it
of those
Puma.
aluminum things, isn't it, Monty?
I don't know how the Germans say it.
I don't know how you say it, mate.
But anyway, so this is what we're going to do right now. So we are going to talk about which the strongest region in League of Legends is. And I know you and I were on the Nines a few weeks ago, and we talked about sort of our picks to get out of groups. And I think at the time I was thinking LEC, but as a true Korean fanboy, I'm sort of sliding back, having watched a bunch more games, into LCK now.
LEC pretty much only sent 2 teams.
It's true. That's the argument.
How many teams did NA send?
Well, 0, because TSM isn't there.
Fair enough. At least he even tied it into a joke. Not bad. No, my big problem with this particular topic is, remember, we're not talking about which region has the best team. You can still think G2 is the best. You don't have to think LEC is the best region, though.
Right.
Like, one of the problems I have with this one is, if you'd have come in the spring and asked me this, I would have been one of those people who would have told you it's the LPL. Like, the LPL had some amazing teams by then. One of the problems they have, though, is you look at the teams that have gotten to Worlds, the crop of teams wasn't as strong by the end of the year, unfortunately. It was only in the spring when they had this really strong set of teams. Now you've got the likes of, like, IG don't even come in with Ning, the guy people were going to try and vote the MVP of MSI, Obviously RNG's looked a bit weaker in more recent times when they've been getting it together. So personally, I know it seems like a cliched answer, but I think you have to default back to Korea. The problem is, even the worst Korean teams, notice all the knocks against them are outside the server. It's like, Damwon's never done anything yet. It's still an amazing team. Exactly.
Yeah.
Like I said before with my joke, who's the team making them choking those? Other top Korean teams, like, we haven't seen G2 do it.
It's playoff SKT every time, right? It's just one team that's making them choke.
Duncan, for LPL, then do you think they didn't send the right 3 teams?
No, because as I say, the problem is, by the end, I think the right teams went. Like, for example, I'm a big fan of 99, the middle laner for top, but actually top of the team had enough problems in playoffs. I think they shouldn't have gone, actually. I think they showed enough weaknesses. I think some of those players probably would have rolled right over at Worlds. So my issue is more just that they sent teams that have clear flaws. Like, for example, they haven't used a rookie jungler in the IG team. RNG's working with a new top laner who has basically been sort of sacked this year. Like, he was supposed to be a carry top lane. They were going to bring him in, play through all the lanes, and they basically didn't work. So they kind of just let him just die. Yeah, basically. He doesn't get to play League of Legends, does he? So just to watch everyone else.
For the LCK teams, you said a lot of the problems are outside of server. I actually don't think so. For Damwon, they basically don't have a bot lane. Like, nuclear.
Which regions are going?
Are you speaking ill of, what was it? Spenu nuclear?
That nuclear. There's no way you don't think Damwon's bot lane is problematic.
You don't need to have the super. What game have you been watching this year? I must have missed it when the bot lanes were deciding the whole game. Last time I was.
Isn't this your argument against
exactly.
Royal? Like, that bot lane is not as important, so he can't carry the game?
Bot lane isn't as important, but you need breathing, living human beings there. If you don't have, like, human beings there, then that's an actual problem.
So you're just saying Damwon is corpses in the bottom lane?
For sure.
And they're just going to get poked with a stick?
Remember, we're comparing regions here. We're not just talking competitive. The problem with that is, like, which region beats them in that regard? Like, you can't have one lane decide the region.
It's just, when we talk about Korea, I think SKT is solid across the board. And even then, I worry a bit for Con and Effort. And then when we get to Griffin, we talk about Griffin being such a good team. They are a great team in mid-game. They are a great team in team fights, but I think Tarzan's actually pretty passive early, and he gets by having incredibly good laners in mid and bot lane.
Yeah, I was listening to the Diaphoria podcast, and they were talking about how his jungle proximity is, like, the lowest.
Yeah.
So he really isn't spending time in the early game around the lanes at all. He's mostly just passively farming and relying on the solo strength of his laners to sort of carry Griffin through.
So he gets more gold than other junglers, but he's not ganking more. And in this meta right now, and considering some of the solo laners and junglers that are there, I think that is going to be problematic, and that's something Griffin is going to have to adapt to.
I think the brutal aspect of this discussion is none of us have yet made any case for LEC, right? Even though everyone says
watched Splice and Play.
That's the problem. If you looked at how the year began, it looked like actually EU had a chance to do this. Like, if this had been what Origin originally was, or if Misfits had ever come together as they thought, like, that's the big problem Europe had, basically. Those teams basically eliminated themselves, and then it was just Splice beating out the Schalkes and the Rogues of the world. Teams that, if you'd start the year with full strength, would never have been in contention.
Well, and we came into the play-in tournament and it was people were favoring Schalke instead of Splice pretty heavily. So it was an upset for Splice even to get here. And I haven't seen anything in the play-ins that would make me think that their performance is going to be exceptional. And well, we'll get to that later. I might have changed my mind on something.
That's the difference, though, to tie it back in. So Europe with Fnatic and G2 looks very good. That's a pretty good 1-2. Like, they can compete with any region for 1 and 2.
Yeah.
But actually, when you look at the teams from Europe, they have reasons in the server why they might lose. G2 does throw random games away and do really crazy picks. Fnatic obviously basically needs to get that great early game, which they do a lot, to be fair. But if they don't, you've seen they can get behind. A lot of teams can beat them. And then Splice, I mean, they are infamous for having that really, like, just that wasteland of the mid-game where nothing happens. And if you can't beat them in that phase, they somehow almost, like, default a win at the end. But it's not like they were out
Other team loses. Splice doesn't really win.
No, Splice, like, as far as I can tell, like, so when I've been watching all these games, in the play-ins, in all the regional playoffs, the advantage is very easy to snowball, it seems like now. Your vision control is relatively limited in terms of the number of wards you can place on the map at the current time. And it seems like once you get a lot of objective control around Drake and Baron, it's very difficult to invade or take that control back. And so the snowball ends up being pretty strong. And this is to say that when I watch Splice, they get these leads, so they should be able, many teams can easily convert these leads into the coup de grace, and they just sit there pooping back and forth forever on the server and not doing anything.
So one thing they do is they wait for item spikes a lot. Kabe getting 3 items or Humanoid getting a certain item. You can see it in their match versus Defamation or Detonation Focus Me, the Japanese team. LeBlanc was so ahead of Galio, but until she got that Ludens, she wasn't willing to do anything but sit mid and get plating. Like, she didn't want to roam. She just wanted to rush that Ludens, and they lost the game before she could get that Ludens. They took a dragon fight when she backed for Ludens, and then the game blew up. And versus better teams, like, we're not talking play-in, we're not talking a Japanese team like that small region. We're talking like teams from Korea, teams from China. They're not going to let them do anything close to that.
So you think they're overvaluing power spikes around items?
Yeah.
And the idea that you can reach it. That's the big problem, I think, for the Splice team. Because in Europe, Cersei, their jungler, does a brilliant job, actually. He does seem to read the opponent. He knows all the other junglers very well and how they're going to play. So in a way, he can kind of just match them and you can survive through that period of the game. I want to see what happens when he goes against a Tarzan or when he goes against Clade, Tian. So, like Clade and Tian, obviously, these are people who are going to be right up in your face. So that's where I want to see, because I could see Splice either being a bit like Team Liquid has this year, where everyone gives them no chance, but then they hang in the games and they give themselves a shot, or just break completely and the style doesn't function whatsoever.
So let me ask you a different question. So when we look at the advantages that they're able to get, how far away do you think they are from converting those advantages into a reliable win, right? Because if you're able, the thing about it is, if you're able to accrue advantages in most games, you're often like only 1 or 2 steps away from like sealing the deal and getting those wins. Because usually it's just a small amount of coaching or a small amount of change that has to happen before things click and it really gets going. Do you think that's possible for them?
So in the past, speed of it wasn't very important because you could buy multiple pink wards. Like, you weren't really limited in your warding. But nowadays, speed of how fast you set up is extremely important. You're not given a lot of time, and it's very important to be efficient with it and be very timely. I don't think that's something Splice can learn to pick up extremely quickly, especially when they haven't been doing it throughout the whole year. Like, their setup has been always so slow. So yeah, I wouldn't bet on that.
I think the problem for me is, like, if these were just robots and you could reprogram their brain, but it's the same play with the same skill, you could do this tomorrow. Like you say, you could just take those scenarios and go, this is what you do instead. The problem is a team like Splice, without going too deep on this, I think the personnel they have, like, they like that style of play. I think people like Kobe want to win.
They're very proud
of their items. Someone like Vizicachi isn't going to be like, load all the resources to me.
We have to talk their coaching staff. Remember when we had Duke on our show? He was very sure of how he should coach that group of 5. And the conclusion they arrived at, I mean, he also seems like a stubborn person, so I don't think they'll change. I think they've arrived at the conclusion this is the best way to play with the group of 5 we have. So we're gonna, we're gonna see how far it takes us.
That's interesting. That's interesting. So that's our click debate here, sponsored by Puma. Hashtag Puma with the region you think is overall the best, not who has the best team.
Yes.
So you have to not just believe that G2 is the best team, which many people do, that the top to bottom, all 3 teams are overall the best. And you will have a chance to win that Puma gift certificate. You have to be 18 or older and live in North America. So sorry to your Europeans, you will not be receiving the Puma swag. Now, that said, next episode, which is going to be happening on the 14th, so about halfway through the first round robin of groups, we're going to change things up a little bit, and we are going to be doing memes, a meme competition for Puma gift certificates. If you live in North America and are 18 or older, use hashtag the nines, and we are going to provide you some templates. So we stood on a green screen with some blank pieces of paper earlier today, so you can watch our Twitter for that, all of our Twitters. We'll put it out later for you guys. So please use that template, or be inventive yourself. If you have a really funny meme that doesn't have anything to do with that, you might still win.
We kind of breezed over it, but do you think LCS has no world-level team? I mean, we have, like, the obvious one is Team Liquid.
That segment just ended. Like, wait, we just did the whole thing. Like, okay, fair. Wait, rewind that. Bring it back.
We passed
all right. We'll talk about it. All right. You want to talk about Dominate instead?
Here's the thing. I would say this. Like, obviously, in that discussion there, the only real three regions people are going to debate is LEC, LCK, and LPL.
And we weren't good enough to be in the video.
But the difference is, like, the only region that should have no part in this for major is LMS. Like, obviously, they aren't in the discussion. Like, even the best team from there, no one really rates. But I will say, like, NA's big problem for me is they don't have, like, the team who can win the tournament. That's the problem. So they don't have, like, the one that drags the average up. But the actual average, like, I'm not a huge fan of Clutch, but if you look at, like, Cloud9 and Team Liquid, that's not bad, actually. Like, in terms of in, like, the middle of the pack, that's not terrible. Those, like, Cloud9 has reasons they can get out the group. Team Liquid actually obviously has a whole bunch of the best region players. So
Clutch can't get out of the group at all. But part of that's the draw.
I don't think LCS is like miles from LEC in that regard.
Really? Because I feel like LCS only sent one team. I think Cloud9, without Jensen, it worries me so much.
Have you seen Fnatic? When did Fnatic become these conquerors? Like,
I don't think Fnatic...
You know, stream now, Nemesis, you actually have to do it against real people like Faker and Uzi and stuff. Like, you know, get back on stream and tell me why they're all rubbish. But, like, you know what I mean? Like, that's a team that could fall apart tomorrow.
If you had a tier list, would you put Cloud9 in the same tier as Fnatic?
I actually think, I've always thought this, I think if Team Liquid and Cloud9 were in Europe, they would have been competing with Fnatic to see who was second best.
Oh, I agree with you for TL, but not for Cloud9.
Cloud9, the problem is, I think Cloud9 is a victim of playing in NA because the people they have to play, they don't have to go through all their strengths, in my opinion. They can do a lot of different things. You see, that's why Reaper does all the 200 IQ drafts, you know, to have a weird angle on it. Like, if you're in Europe, you just play the best champions that are available for you, try to beat the team. I think it would actually bring the best out of them.
Or you're G2 and you do whatever you want.
I mean, we saw Nifty in Europe. Nifty in NA is number one or number two best mid laner. Nifty in Europe was never top two.
That's why the problem there is, listen, I'm the one who says that argument normally. My problem is this, everyone tells me Niski's leveled up. So if that's true, why can't he be a really good player? In the same way everyone says Jensen got worse because he's in NA, always does pretty well internationally from what I've seen. So I don't think it's the end of the... Like, Nifty could be a better player now. He's in a top team.
Nifty plays in NA, and also I think Reaper always gets the best out of his mid laners, and he has Svenskeren. He's not going to look anywhere near that good in Europe.
All right. We will talk more about this with Dominate. Right now, we're going to take a look at the C9 Puma collaboration that just launched today, which you can get on their website. And we'll have IWillDominate on after that.
Everybody thought I was nothing, living for a play-by-play. I was always on to something, and I was doing it my own damn way. Yeah, nobody get me like I do. I ain't never be the same as you, just trying to break through. Everybody try to put me in a box, but I'm getting kinda tired of breaking locks. Gonna live my life if that's okay. I'ma do it, yeah, I do it, there to do it my way. Stand back, watch me play, I'm moving, and all the shade they throw at me, well, I'm gonna use it. I ain't afraid, I'm where I belong. They said that I was nothing, well, nothing's got something going on. Everybody thought I was nothing. Now they do it, try to do it, wanna do it my way.
All right, so the collection dropped today, the video dropped today. It was fun to do that. I went to Croatia for the shoot with C9. I got to wear a fake mustache. addresses.
That seems like a waste of budget. Why couldn't they just film all that not in Croatia?
Oh well, you know, they had the decayed buildings that they wanted to use.
Have they never seen Detroit?
Apparently, their location scouts didn't like it enough. You can
Or anywhere in Michigan generally.
We'll let you do the location scouting next time.
Baltimore it is. Let's go.
All right, so we are going to do now Cloud Connections, brought to you by AT&T, and this is going to be the bulk of the show. So it will be IWillDominate as the guest. So yes, welcome. You may join us.
The whole show's
Wait, what was GoldenGlue then?
GoldenGlue was the warm-up.
No, you're gonna come sit over here.
Oh, I'm sitting over there.
We're getting kicked out again.
Okay.
We all know how this works.
What's up? Long time no see.
We're getting used to. I see you again, man. We're getting used to doing this not on Skype, which is
Discord. It's crazy
to do it. No, we used to do it on Skype for years. We never did this show on Discord. Discord didn't exist.
No.
Oh, okay.
That's long. When was the last Summoning Insight? 2015?
2016. We did the one-off with Forgiven.
Yes, we did a one-off, but that was
year.
mainly just
All
old stuff.
I mean, Forgiven's always a good guest
Not bad.
for that type of show. I remember some of his
Put it this way, we didn't
Crazy
even
lines.
invite him on the show. He actually privately demanded that we make something that again and use in the show.
Yeah,
because he's forgiven, we just said yes.
I mean, he had that famous line, you either try to be the best or you can suck a
cock.
Exactly.
Well, I didn't want to say it on the show. You know, I'm just here. I don't know what the rules are yet.
I don't know that myself, actually.
I was going to leave it out. You know? I figured they could fill in the blank for us.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a rooster, so it's fine.
Yeah,
he was referring to male chickens. It's okay.
Definitely. Knowing him, that must be the reference.
It's a Greek thing.
I said, I have nothing else to say here.
All right, so thanks for coming on the show. Obviously, you're doing a show with Locodoco weekly right now. The stream is popping off. Everything's going great for you. You're not shadow banned by Riot.
For now.
Oh, right. I forgot about those things you said.
No, I mean, so I'm on probation, is what the term actually is. No, I'm serious. I'm on league partner probation because I got so many accounts banned in Europe. So,
wow.
Yeah. Now that's my status within Riot. For some reason, I feel like they don't like me too much.
Do you have
They're actually showing a highlight video where you were typing like abuse into the highlight video, like not all the sick players.
Holy moly!
You were like, you're a subhuman worm.
I mean, that's a real representation of what the stream's like. So I feel like it's just accurate.
Do you have to wear some sort of ankle monitor, or what does probation mean?
Probation means that I get so I was supposed to play in Twitch Rivals. Kicked me out of that. I was supposed to be in All-Stars last year. I was on probation for that too. Kicked me out of All-Stars. I don't get any of the benefits from being a league partner. I can't get accounts. I can't have skin codes to give away to my community. Pretty much everything that a league partner would get is stripped from me. Yeah.
Oh, man.
So it's going great.
We're keeping this interview nice and light.
Yeah.
What a fun battle.
Yeah, I mean,
So what else is going on? What else are they doing?
Well, okay. Well, I mean, if I'm gonna do a shameless plug, I'm gonna drop Cut the Western Shit Mark Merrill soon, and we'll see if that even keeps me in the league partner program.
Well, I'm looking forward to that.
That one's gonna be spicy right there. So.
That sounds good. That sounds good.
I like where this is going.
Yep.
This is the level of degeneracy that.
Here's the thing. That's one time Tryndamere won't be untargetable.
Are we going to be featured in it, Dom?
We'll see. I mean, I haven't started shooting it yet, but yeah, I have a lot of points that I want to make about that man. You know.
Ironically, he doesn't have many points to make whatsoever about anything.
Well, yeah, when you're
that,
when you're that disconnected from what's actually happening within your company, what can you even say?
Exactly.
Besides
I've got
for
a question
tweets that you delete.
So coming into this one, right, I noticed there was a lot of spirited debate for this Worlds. The topic basically that was attracting a lot of interest was who is Tarzan as a jungler, right? Because everyone who's a big fan of the Korean scene, I've noticed, thinks he's the god. I do.
I think he's the god.
But I noticed a lot of the Western people are trying to I noticed they always set it up as though they say things that make it sound like he's bad. Well, he's a bit more passive and slow. It's to me that's intelligent and calculating. You can pick your criteria. So where do you come down on this one?
So I'm more on I'm a Tarzan fanboy, right? When I did my top 20, I had him as the #1 player going into Worlds.
Really?
Loco had him I think 7th, 8th, something.
I had him a lot lower.
Yeah, he had a lot lower. So we had this discussion before, but I just think that Tarzan is one of those players where he just makes the best decision all the time, and that type of calculated play to me is what I really respect in the jungler. It feels like he never makes a bad player. He never
goes into a situation like missing out on information. Like everything that he does, he's taking into account all the TPs, where everyone could be, who is mid lane prio, where the vision is, which lane is strong, like when he can dive. Like all those things are so perfect for me, so that even if he doesn't have the best mechanics out of all the junglers, like Clid probably out mechanics him all day, his level of like knowledge puts his team so far ahead, in my opinion.
He plays ideal jungle League of Legends, but I don't think he plays ideal League of Legends. Just farm up, make sure your laners win by themselves, and then gank only when it's guaranteed. That's ideal jungle League of Legends.
No, wait a second. That was such a straw man. Like, it's not that he only ganks after he's farmed up. He ganks while he's farming. Just as Dom said,
he ganks a lot less than other junglers.
But he doesn't
look at his team.
He doesn't gank as much, but he pressures really hard, which I really like about him as a player. Like he understands which side of the map is his strong side, and he understands like how he can maximize that advantage. So he'll be on the right side. He will be like counter jungling, getting leads. Like that's the reason why he ends up with these leads over all these other junglers, is because he's in the right place at the right time, and he plays off his laners really well.
His laners are always winning. You got Chovy, Leehan, and Viper on your team. I'm not going to talk about top lane because top lane's an island. Top lane's an island.
Okay, so 2 out of your 3 laners, 2 out of your 3 lanes are winning. Okay.
Always winning though. If 2 out of 3 lanes are always winning.
Wait a minute. So where were all those players on your list? They must have all been top 10, right? They're always winning in Korea. LCK, best region. They're always winning their lane, are they?
Chovy and Viper are up there. Chovy and Viper are up there, but also for Griffin, their laners are extremely good in lane, but they're lacking elsewhere.
I don't know what Chovy is good at. All I've seen him do is sit in Tarzan's backpack for the last year and a half. Like, everyone talks like he was off having a rookie career, like some god-tier player. Yeah. Remember, he's the guy who was last added to the team, except for obviously the top player guy. Like, So I always feel like, I actually think the most overrated player in Griffin is Chovy, actually, because no one really knows who he is.
I mean, I feel like he developed so much hype during that spring split, right? Like that's what everyone started talking about.
Or something.
He had like 104 KDA for like the first I think it was like 5 weeks or something, or first 9 games, something like that. He had such insane KDA, everyone just started hyping him. But I feel like you don't get an opportunity to have that type of KDA if your team is not like playing perfectly around you. Like it's like pretty much he gets that KDA by not getting solo killed in lane. He doesn't get solo killed, then he just wins.
Wow, so a mid laner can have 104 KDA and the credit goes to the rest of the team and not the mid laner.
I mean, yeah, when you're playing champions like do you know how impossible it is to kill the Zoe? The champion has 17 flashes.
This is some jungle politics.
Look, better jungler wins every game. So that's why Tarzan is just getting.
So okay, all right.
To me, the most overrated player in League at all times is always the player who plays with the absolute best jungler, because you're always just going to look so much better. The difference is
like Bengi and Faker.
Oh yeah, yeah. Faker is so overrated, I guess.
I know. He didn't think that one through, did he? The problem with Loco is like he says the setup to the joke before he's thought of the punchline. You know.
All right. So I think we should transition this, because this is a lot of discussion about who is going to be the best jungler at this event, and you guys have these junglers really high. So let's take a look at the top 20 lists for Worlds that were released by Jat and Vedius coming out, because I think when we talk about those, clearly from the Jat and Vedius side, there's a lot of emphasis on mid laners having like a huge effect on this tournament. Both of them have Faker at number 1, and even though Clid's at 4 and 5 on Jat and Vedius's list respectively, and Tarzan is 5, do you guys think that in this meta, the jungle is going to be that deciding factor, or is it the strength of the solo? Because like last year at Worlds, it was a lot of the strength of the solo lanes, and this time seems like people are, and especially you guys, are putting junglers higher.
Just as a distinction, so that no one has the wrong impression where we look at these lists, it's worth pointing out Jat's actual criteria for his was this is like a prediction of which 20 players are going to do well at Worlds, which is very different to most other people's. You know, most people are doing it based on this year or history or whatever. So he's basically actually, as you say, predicting like people like junglers are going to have massive impact. People like Clid are going to take over the tournament. What do you think?
I'm not sure if Clid is going to straight up take over the tournament. I'm really interested to see about like how that Group C goes with Clid going against people like Broxah. Like people would say that Clid is much better than Broxah, right? Like they're not even in the same tier. But I feel like Broxah is the type of player that can play into anyone, right? Like that's like one of his strengths is that he plays like up to the level of competition. So if he plays against somebody really good, he's going to perform well as well. He's not just going to let somebody shit on him because he has a good.
He definitely did well against Jankos.
Yeah, he did fine against Jankos last Worlds. He did fine. Besides for like the finals, he was one of the stars of the team. So I feel like Clid is, for me, Clid is overhyped. Obviously, a lot of people put him like second, third, like on my list. Like I had him pretty low on my list. I'm not a huge Clid like fan. I feel like he's just like
mainly mechanics, not much brain.
I feel like that's the perfect team for him as well. Look at those. But like, one thing I don't get about these lists is this. If you ask me, gun to my head, who's the best player in SK Telecom now? Teddy. I would go instantly Teddy.
Yeah.
So he's below Faker and Cleared on one of these lists. Like, they're having him as like way down the list. So I'm just amazed that like people were putting like Faker #1, for example. Like, this isn't 2 years ago, mate.
Without Clid, I don't think SKT can function. Clid is almost the sole reason why they can get through early game.
Yeah. I mean, I think that when you look at that team, people really underrate, like people are like, oh, Griffin has the best laners, all this stuff. You look at SKT, the worst laner on their team is Khan. Obviously Khan has had...
Effort.
Sure, but Khan has had like a bad year, I'd say, for the context of his career, but he's still Khan. Like, he's still like one of the better Korean tops.
No, well, not an international event.
I
like
find that so weird.
Historically, he's a choker, right?
Yeah, right.
I agree, Dom, though. The bit I find mad is this, basically. Like you say, people who are, like, I like Tarzan, the player, but everyone makes, like, it's Griffin, the one with all the players. I think SKT's got the best players in Korea. They have the super team lineup, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, Teddy Faker is like top 2 mid and AD. I mean, it depends on how high you rate Showmaker, but I'm actually pretty low on Damwon. Everyone else is hyping Damwon.
I think they're a bit overrated. Yeah.
I think they're the most overrated team right now coming into Worlds. People consider them like one of the best teams. Why? Why are they good? They literally get 3-0 smacked in playoffs. They barely beat KT, and then they look like all right in play-ins. And we're supposed to be like, and that's from Korea, which has performed poorly in the last 2 international events. Why are they suddenly one of the like Worlds contenders? Why? Because Naguri takes Klepto and solo queue and duos with the jungler, duo abuses with a high MMR account and gets 72% win rate rank 2. That's why they're just suddenly the best team in the world.
Specific.
I do appreciate though.
Literally the people,
all the people who spent the last 7 years telling me to stop going on about Flame. Those days are gone. Like, you know, you don't just get all the resources and carry the whole game. You're supposed to play for the team, and then Naguri literally just has all the. It's like you'd think he was like the son of some sheik, and he just bought this team and goes, "You have to make the team exactly so my son has a good game every time." It's ridiculous.
Okay,
the whole team runs through him.
But looking at the results of the play-ins, yes, we expect that team to crush play-ins, but they only lost a game over the course of play-ins.
But they were very messy. Even in their wins.
Sure, but at the end, they were able to close, right?
Anyway, though, to bring it back, though, let's bring this back to this discussion. The real question is, does Damwon have any players who should be on the top 20 list? What do you think?
I think Showmaker and Naguri deserve to be on the top 20 list. They're on my top 20 list, but I don't think that, like, everyone has Naguri, like, top 10. Like, I guess on this list, he's not there.
That's Jats. This is Vedius's over here.
A lot of people haven't.
Vedius has him 8th.
I've seen Naguri
and 12th Showmaker.
3. I had him 3 on mine.
I've seen Naguri 3, 5, like really high up, and I just feel like he's not that level of player. Like, he does a lot of weird stuff to me that I just don't really identify with. I mean, even if it ends up like, even if they end up winning the game, I look at the Cole, Klepto, Coin, Vladimir top. I'm like, 80 items on Vladimir, gold per 10 items with Klepto top. Like, that's, I understand you're playing into a tank, but is that optimal? Like, I don't know.
It's optimal if you're so much better than the enemy top.
Yeah, and then they lane swap and you get your shit pushed in for 20 minutes, and then maybe by the end of the game you'll be relevant. Nice.
I think that's one of the issues going into this tournament, though, is like, if you want to make a list like this, Naguri's almost primed to get on this list, because if they win, he's going to look awesome. He gets everything he wants, gets the champ he wants, gets played through the jungler, comes in lane all the time.
If you look at how Damwon plays, like, so many games, they do that topside invade. So they'll start with their top lane jungle, and their jungle will start enemy red buff or enemy blue buff, depending on what side they're on.
Map split.
Yeah, so they map split, and they play like Renekton, Talia, and like all these matchups where it's like Naguri gets the most, like, not only is it an island, he has an island with like the threat of the jungler all the time.
He's got like the monkey butlers and like a hammock made out of coconuts. Like, yeah, he can brilliant island.
He can take bad trades in lane. He can take bad trades in lane, but the enemy laner is not allowed to capitalize on them because he has to respect the fact that Canyon just could be there at any point. So.
But I'll contrast that. Think of any of the other tops that might be on the list. Wonder, the Shy. These people literally get played away from some of the times. Like, sometimes there's another lane that they just say to the Shy, like, you got 1 kill, you just play the rest of the game on your own, mate. I mean, you're not getting force-fed.
Gimgoon is pretty similar. Like, they just give Gimgoon GP, and it's like, all right, you're just farming that lane for like the rest of your life. Hopefully you show up and you do well. I respect top laners that can play like strong side and weak side. It feels like Damwon never really plays with their top side being their weak side. Like, they'll send their jungler bot, and he'll do the most pathetic gank ever. He'll like show up, throw a skill, they'll miss it, and then it's like, all right, I'll see you guys in 20 minutes. Then he goes back to the top side.
You want to see Damwon playing towards bot lane? I don't think they get anywhere if they play towards their bot lane.
But that's a huge
the
weakness.
point, though. I
point.
agree with him. If you're judging top laners, like, in the modern day, it's how good you are at both styles. It's when you play it to you and when you're on the weak side as well. And actually, Naguri, basically almost, we don't just see him even do that pretty much.
he's not in a position to. On that team, he can't. He can't ever be the weak side. You can't, as Damwon.
Guess what? I know you wouldn't know this in your life, but you don't get credit for things you didn't do but think you could have done.
You get judged on the performance you've shown, and he's shown excellent performance.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just for me in general, I mean, I think that's a huge weakness. That's why in my like Group D list, or like how I ranked the teams, I don't even have Damwon making it out of groups. Like, I don't think that they are going to be able to, because the thing is, when you look at who they're playing against, do you really think that Impact is the type of player that's going to get shit on so hard that they're not going to be able to win the game?
I mean, he's basically made his whole career off that not happening.
Yes, exactly.
That's
Like he always has been a very conservative player.
Mm-hmm. And Jensen is the same way. Like, both those solo laners are really hard to shit on, right? They're consistent. They get, like, maybe they'll go down 10 CS or something like that. But if you don't play to bot side at all versus TL, they are going to get turret, dragon. They're going to have everything going for them. And I feel like Doublelift will be able to carry a game late. I mean, we're still, like, regardless of how strong you think bot lane is right now, bot lane is still what determines who wins and loses the game late. So if your bot lane is really far ahead, it's over.
So now that we're talking about Team Liquid and Group D, and obviously we're showing some of these lists that have, Showmaker and Nuguri way up on that list, and both of the lists from Jet and Vedius have 0 NA players on them.
I do think that's egregious, because here's the thing, right?
I mean, they had a very good performance at MSI.
Some of the names on this list here, I can tell it's legacy ones, like putting people like for example, Rookie's barely done much this year. He didn't even play some of the first games of the split.
What about Wonder?
That's not a bad one, yeah. I would even say Wonder's the guy who's had his lane sacked a lot. Like, to me, you don't even have to make it like I'm putting on double for an NA player. KJJ is Korean, but he plays in the NA region. Yeah. What a brilliant player he is. Yeah. Like, understandably an MVP candidate. I would have him in there as well.
I had him at 15. I think CoreJJ is an excellent player. I think Impact is also an excellent player, especially when you consider how he's played at Worlds. He is always consistent. Every single Worlds, people are low on Impact. They're like, oh, it's Impact. Look at all the players he's going to have to play against. He's just going to get shit on. And he never gets shit on. He never gets shit on, ever.
I mean, I'm coming into this because I'm looking at these teams and I'm seeing, well, look at how MSI went, and we're looking at the strength of Team Liquid, and we're looking at the strength of G2, and yet Jankos, who, if people honestly believe that G2 is the favorite team at this tournament, and yes, Vedius has him as Perks at number 2, but how can you not take the MVP of the summer season on the ostensibly best team in this tournament, or at least the big favorite to win, and then say that Jankos is not even going to be high at all on these lists?
Can you put Jat's list up there? Is that Jat's list?
No, this is Jat's list.
This is Jat.
You know what Jat said? Jat said he has such good teammates around him that he could jungle for G2 and they would win a split.
You got the wrong reason. He meant to say TSM, obviously, there. Like, Jack got his favourite teams mixed up again. He's like, who's a good team now? No, I actually think one player, by the way, I want to bring up, because on both the lists I saw, on Jat's he's number 2, on Vedius' I think he was in number 4. How are these guys...
he is number 9.
How are people rating Doinby? I was referring to Doinby, though. How are people rating Doinby? Because I don't get how he can be on these lists.
I think it's intangibles.
That's what I mean. Like, if I'm making a list... Like, bear in mind, I can't speak Chinese. I don't know what he's saying. Like, I know you can sort of figure out, well, all of his teams, he was a great in-game, but it's like, it's kind of hard to rate that on a list, though,
I mean, I see him as the Chinese high.
Of course.
So, like,
yes, that's a very good.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. Yeah,
that's how I view him as a player. So he gets credit for just being like the team leader, bringing them all together. I feel like without him, that team doesn't succeed.
That's a great analogy though, because the analogy here would be: imagine people for Worlds had put high over Jensen. It's like, well, just in the server, what you see, Jensen's a way better player. So, like, that's why I'm surprised people were so high on having Doinby up on the list here. Because if you take out the intangibles, he's a good player, but he's not even a superstar.
I mean,
I take over the whole server with a pick or something.
I've always just like really disliked Doinby as a player, even though the weird thing is, yes, well, I always liked High because I could see at least like the effect that High was having on the game and like how he made do with a limited champion pool. Doinby obviously has a much bigger champion pool, but some of the stuff he does obviously has been very strange over the years. But to me, he's never actually held up when it comes to international competition, and that's like the major knock against him.
I think that's also the flaw with what he has to do in the game, though, like High, which is you can't just play your lane. You can't have, I've got a bad matchup, so I'm just going to chill under the tower. He is the shot caller, like in the most literal sense. The whole game's through him. So that's why you've seen all these crazy things he did in the LPL region where he'd have like builds and champions no one else was playing because he knew if I can get it to this point of the game, like famously he would buy Righteous Herald.
Righteous Glory,
rather, so that he could be the engage. Imagine a mid laner being the engage like that and the shot caller.
Yeah, but you're papering over your weaknesses, right? In the same way that Hai would use things like Zed to paper over weaknesses in his own play to try and get picks or find a split push so that he could control the pressure on the map and threaten at least a 1v1 on a powerful assassin champion, right?
I personally like what that does to the enemy team, though. Like when you're playing a team that's so strange like that, it puts you out of your comfort zone. Like all the picks that DoNB has, right, like the Righteous Glory Rise you mentioned, the Kled is another huge one, his Nautilus mid. Those are all picks that, yeah, they function as an engage from mid lane, and a lot of people aren't used to that. They're not ready for a Kled to just hit level 6 and just dive bot with ultimate. Like normally you're expecting Kled as a top laner, like he has to TP, he has to invest more resources to do those types of things. So I like when teams are weird like that because I feel like it's harder to like play against them. You don't get experience.
I'll give you an analogy. Like, obviously not the same type of player scenario, but in terms of like a very unorthodox approach. I remember when they used to have Huhi as the mid laner in CLG, and obviously the bizarre thing about that is if you've played professional League of Legends, you're used to the mid laner being the guy you want to dump everything in on and kill as fast as possible. This guy would just be on Orionn Soul, just like wasting your time on that. While Stixxy just got free auto attacks on you. It's like, as you're saying, even though you go into the game telling yourself, like, don't get distracted by like, the way you've trained your whole life almost tells you, like, oh, it's brilliant, let's get it on the mid laner now. And that, for that team, it's probably the wrong style to play the way.
It's also impossible to have that level of preparation, right? Because no one else is going to intentionally play this style to mirror their style to prepare you for a match. So you're just kind of going in, even if you know what they're going to do, like you're saying, experiencing it in the game and reacting to it on the fly is a very different thing, especially when somebody's so good at executing it.
I mean, you see it all the time in best of fives, right? Like where they give a team a really strong pick, and they're like, oh, let's see if we can play against it. We saw it in like the UOL series, right? It's like, okay, let's see how we play into these types of specific champions. I'm sure that we can handle it. But when you don't have the experience, it feels like it almost never works out.
G2 Fnatic, the TF pick.
Yeah, G2 Fnatic, the TF pick. Also giving them like Silas random times. Like it just felt like.
Yeah, keep going.
No, we're good.
Sorry, don't worry.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to make sure. Like I didn't know if we were off.
No, sorry.
Okay, no, I think that in best of ones, you have to like draw more bans to that. Like you don't have the luxury of being like, oh, let's give them a game, see how it actually is, like test out our counter picks. You actually have to win every single game. These are not big groups. These are 6-game groups, right? So like you get 6 games, you can't drop one, letting another team play their best champions.
Sure. Actually, to tie back in when earlier we were saying there's obviously no NA region, but there's actually not that many general Western players who made the list generally. Like, one of the things I'm so surprised by is, right, I personally think the most overrated narrative of the year is that G2's players are just way above the level of everyone else, and that's why they were winning. Like, I think Fnatic's players, they compare pretty well role for role. So one of the names I would have had way higher on my list would be Hylissang. Like, I think he's the best Fnatic player. I think he's the pivotal player. And again, this is the world we live in now. He's one of the best supports, period. You don't have to just go Western support. Like, he's up there with Core JJ and the other brilliant players from Asia for, like, best player in his role, for sure.
Yeah, I think he complements that team really well, too. Like, he's the perfect player for Reckless to play with because Reckless never has to make a decision to go aggressive. Hylissang will set up everything. That's Reckless as a player.
Yeah, that's what he wants.
Like, Reckless is not going to be the
He's
player where it's like,
player.
I'm going to jump in on Tristana first, like, let's fucking go. Like, he's not that.
He needs somebody to drag him in,
yeah,
is what you're saying.
He's like, all right, you engage, and if it looks really good, if it looks clean, then I'll go in with you, you know? So I feel like that type of team just sets up him so well because you have Bwipo 2, which is really, he's willing to burn teleport for almost anything. He's willing to sacrifice his lane to do whatever to get the team ahead. Hylissang will make plays for you. Broxton will make plays for you. Nemesis will make plays for you. And then they actually, like, mask Reckless's weakness as best as possible, which allows Fnatic to like have a chance to beat some of these teams.
Yeah, agreed.
And on these lists too,
he could have been way higher on these lists. Like for example, and I'll be fair here because in my opinion, whenever you make like a ranking list, you have to point out who you'd take out. Like I would take out people like Rookie. Like I don't know in what universe Rookie's been better than Hylissang this year. Like I know it's a big name. I know people want to go on like Legacy and stuff, but like this wasn't Rookie's best year, mate.
It wasn't the Shy's best year either.
The Shy did.
He had plenty of int games.
Yeah, the Shy had a pretty terrible like
Yeah.
summer split.
I think a lot of people are still riding the spring hype on that one. It's like that kind of fell away, guys.
I mean, I feel like so many players get credit for what they've done. I mean, even Uzi, I put him pretty high on my list. I had him 4 on my list as well. But I don't actually like think he was the 4th best player. I just felt like people would be mad at me if I didn't, you know?
Yes.
Like,
He's
so I had to put him there.
You caved to the pressure.
I literally just, I had to give them something. You know? I'm like, all right, I'll put Uzi 4 on my list, but I'm going to put some picks later on that you're not going to like.
I agree, though.
Like the
Uzi I
Cortez.
basically is in the same position as Faker. It's like you have to have him high up because as soon as people see the list, before they even think, they just go, what the hell? You don't have Faker in there?
I mean,
whereas Alec, put it this way, if you want to go today, just this moment, who's the best AD carry in China, I'd go Jackie Love. I think he was pretty good for IG when they had those bad games from the Shy, when Rookie was out, etc. He's a guy who had to carry the load, and he was very, very good. Yeah. But he doesn't have the big name, you know. He doesn't have the Uzi I name, of course. Who does?
We talked about it with GoldenGlue, but what do you think about Faker at number 1? Because he's probably the most common number 1 for everyone on the list.
It's just credit for what he's done. I mean, I had him 2 on my list. Obviously, I don't think he performed as the 2nd best player in summer in the world. Like that, I don't think that that's the case at all. But he has such like an insane clutch factor. He just has that presence within the game where you just feel like he's always going to perform when it matters. And I give him credit just for that because he's done it so many times before.
But anyway, I mean, I already addressed it earlier. For me, I think this is the SK Telecom that requires the least of Faker. He can actually just be a normal mid laner in this team.
He can be a role player. I feel like when he plays Nico, for example, right? Like that's one of the picks he picked. I think he maybe had 8 or 9 Nico games in the summer split. I think he won all of them, maybe dropped 1. And he's just playing like a secondary like engage, pretty much like the way that AP Nico was functioning in these fights is like a CC bot. He's just going in and ulting for his team, where in every other iteration of SKT, it's like you needed Faker doing the damage.
Well, or they would do things like they would try and play him on Karma repeatedly in the past, and because he didn't have the surrounding cast in order to empower that pick, they would lose games.
There was a very brief period where Lulu Lucian was their core, and it did work out for them. Faker was amazing on
That was
Lulu.
called when Bang was good. It was a while ago. Get over it. It's in the past.
Lulu Lucian was really strong. Also, Lulu was just insanely broken as a mid laner. But I felt like Lulu was less of like, it was supportive, but it was like
he would even get killed on that.
Solo kill, yeah.
He would still get aggro in the lane and kill people.
That was why Lulu was so OP. It's like you'd still be able to like play that supportive role in a team fight, but you could win your lane. You could push with your Q. Your Q did so much damage to the wave compared to like how many times they nerfed it.
And Faker's actually insane on these kind of utility champions. Do you guys remember the RNG versus SKT series? Like 5 Galio games in a row. Like Galio isn't a pure carry. There is some utility aspect to it, and you need to shot call, you need to roam around. And Faker's just so well-rounded when you come to playing anything.
Yeah. It wasn't that we were saying he was bad at these champions historically. It's that they require other people to step up, which hasn't always occurred in certain situations, and it may have been changing towards the World Championship this year.
And I think that was the issue that you saw in those finals for Samsung, is like he was still playing that style, right? Like they played the 5 Galio games against RNG, and then they played, I think, 1 game Karma, 1 game Galio. I forget what the 3rd game was in the finals versus Samsung, but they got 3-0'd because he was just playing supportive champions the whole time, and they needed him to just 1v9 the game.
Also, Crown just played Malzahar, and as a Malzahar, you can usually take one person out of the game, and they're like, okay, we take Faker out of the game.
Usually the Malzahar player. It's kind of the point, right? In some ways. No, I actually think another angle on these lists that I found a little bit curious was so many people, the EU equivalent of the Faker and Uzi I one is Perks, in my opinion, because they can't be rating this guy as an AD carry on these lists.
Intangibles.
Like, in what universe is Perks above Teddy as an AD carry? Like,
that's Jad's list. Vedius has him at number 2 behind Faker.
If you look at this tournament,
you had him at number 1?
Yeah.
One of the most stacked roles in this tournament is AD carry. Like, basically the best AD carries are here. So the idea that like Perks is going to outshine those guys, I think that's just a bit
He gets so much credit for other things that, like, obviously as a traditional AD carry, he doesn't beat them, right? But every single game, like, we might not ever see his Yasuo in this tournament, but he played Yasuo in LEC. He just won every single game on it. People were afraid of his.
He might get
Yasuo.
respect bans.
It got permabanned for the rest of LEC. Like 5 games against Fnatic, banned every single game.
Sure.
5 games against Fnatic in the semis because they played 2 best of 5s. That's banned every single game again. He plays Syndra bot. Like, the fact that Syndra is such a powerful flex pick for them, if we looked at solo queue and stuff, everyone started picking up Syndra. Like, a bunch of these AD carries are playing Syndra now. Like, even Reckless is playing Syndra. People that wouldn't be mage players are now playing Syndra just because of, like, how OP he's made it look so many times, because he was doing that as far back as spring. So
I promise you we're going to see it, because what everybody thinks when they come in, especially if they're not used to playing against it, and when they start to have this international competition, is they'll be like, oh no, we have an answer for that. But it's always like a very arrogant thing to do, because even against players like, we can kick it back to Huhi, like sometimes you see players not ban Aurelion Sol and he would just take over the game because it'll just get through, especially in international competition where they don't respect the threat.
Yeah, and it's such, like, when you look at bot lane combos and you think about all AD carries, all the meta AD carries, Xayah, Kai'Sa, when that's banned and people play Ezreal, some people are playing Lucian. When you look at all those champions, what are those champions supposed to do against a Syndra Pyke when Syndra Pyke hits level 6? When you just stun somebody with Syndra, guarantee the Pyke hook, guarantee the Pyke stun, Syndra ult into the Pyke execute, even the same thing with Rakan. All these lanes that they play with Syndra, I feel like Syndra is like a better bot laner, especially in the early game, than every other AD carry.
Not just level 6, when they come back and you come back with Lost Chapter or Sword Boost, and then the other person comes back with BF, you're gonna get one shot. You're buying 0 defensive stats where, yeah, you're just so vulnerable to getting one shot from the mage plus the engage support.
My problem on that angle, though, is I think you can also flip that and use it to go against Perkz being that great a player, which is, like, if you were a normal player who just played, like if you were upset from Schalke, I always use him as my example because for a team, they're pretty decent, but he's like way better than most of his teammates, and most of his teammates aren't really on this kind of level, right? Even if he did play Yasuo in that scenario, all that gets you is the ban. Someone just bans it extra and you still have to play normally. Perkz can do all these things also because you can't even waste all your bans on Perkz. You can waste a couple, but you think of all the other players you're trying to ban out from G2. He gets the setup to do these things as well.
We talked about it before. G2 has so many good picks that they play that you have to give them something.
You have to give them a couple of power picks, of course.
So I guess the two major ones are Qiyana and Yasuo, banned every single game against G2 because they flex Qiyana, they flex it in 3 different positions.
Exactly, yeah.
That champion has been insane. And then they have the Yasuo, which they flex in 2 positions, and they can just, even if they don't flex it, they can just send it bot, and they won every single game with that. They play Yasuo Rakan, Yasuo Gragas, all these lanes bot. Those are 2 bans. And then if you think about when G2 is on blue side, then you have to also ban Yuumi, because Yuumi is super OP, because they can play things like Garen Yuumi, and just Yuumi in general is just an OP champion. And then it's like, okay, well then you're guaranteed to like give them something like a Kali, something that they play super, super well besides for all that stuff.
I'll give you one angle that no one does bring up, because obviously everyone focuses on the mage angle for versatility. The real angle that's sexy in G2 is if they ever want to, it's mainly for series play, they can obviously switch the lanes. Like we've seen them do that before. And if someone pulls that on you, there's no way you can't. Even if you think that could happen, you can never prepare for that. And obviously the whole point is this guy absolutely could go and just play Syndra in the mid lane if you wanted. Maybe Caps plays something in the. You can do a lot of crazy things if you want.
And they're one of the teams that is the most willing to try things that they believe to be good. So many teams are like, they'll have their own idea of how to play, and then they're like, is this really good? Are we confident enough to do it? Let's just go the more safe option. It feels like G2 is always trying to take the most psychopathic option possible at all points. It's like they want to be weird in a way.
So we've talked about all these different sort of laners, and in the context of these top 20 lists, part of the priority that you're putting on is the role itself and what effect that's going to have on the game. So as we have seen the plans right now in this patch, what are the most, what do you think has the biggest effect on the game, the most outsized effect on the game as a role right now, and how is that going to determine which of the teams do well at Worlds?
It's tough.
So we had the discussion before where I think jungle has the most impact right now because jungle, just the role is so strong and the gank pad thing is so varied, and also along with like the champions that are being played, when your mid lane is a Qiyana, like ganking for a Qiyana, ganking for a Pyke, ganking for a Rakan, like the ganks are so available and so dangerous and so impactful once it happens. So for me, I think jungle is the most impactful.
I'll give you a counterpoint to that. Like I kind of agree, but like one of the people I do one of my shows with, the European one, Veteran, had a great way of explaining it where he said this: the reason why he was picking people like Jankos or Hylissang as his MVP candidate is he thinks once you have the good team that enable you to do all the things you can do as a 6 support, roaming, as a jungler who can choose, if you're Jankos, you can go to any lane, can't you? You can go anywhere you want. Difference is, if you were, again, stuck on a team that plays through one lane or has one good player or has one good matchup, you wouldn't have the choice to do the things Jankos is doing. Like, that would be wasted to go to the lane that's losing and etc. So to me, it's like they can be the best players and the most impactful, but they have to already have the foundation of all the sick players. If you go to the teams where they have one lane that's just sacked entirely, that jungler has like twice as hard a game almost. So in that world, the laner becomes more powerful to me.
Yeah, I feel like support and jungle are both like really strong right now in the great teams, right? So like when you look at the top teams, I value supports and jungles really high. I feel like in Fnatic, for example, Hylissang is able to do so much to put his team ahead because he'll win the lane for you, then he'll roam and he'll make like all the plays that will get people ahead. At the end of the day, AD can only do so much in bot lane to set up kills, to get advantages. It's mainly on the support to put his pressure on the game, put his mark on the lane phase, and I feel like the best supports always do that. There's a lot of good supports in this tournament. Mickey X, you have Crisp, you have Hillsong, like that right there is already a bunch of strong supports. Effort. Core JJ is super underrated, I feel like, coming into this tournament.
Another one, he's on this list here. No one's ever, I haven't heard anyone, any of these discussions talk about is Ming.
Yeah,
what a
Ming.
brilliant player that guy is.
Yep.
The stud.
Support used to be just like a trash role, like you just put your worst player on support.
Yeah.
I think some of these support players are so good mechanically, they could easily play solo lanes.
Yeah, I mean, Mickey X was one of the best Gragas mid players in EU, and then he just changed to being a support because he thought that would be like a better fit for him. But he was like a top rated, some people said he was rank 1, I'm not sure exactly what rank he was, but he was at the top of the ladder playing Gragas mid.
Could you imagine, like, when were you still in the game, like, what, 2016?
Yeah, like, imagine Locodoco in Season 2 when he was a support for CLG.
Oh, you're right. They do put the trash player on spot. Yeah, he was right. He didn't know he was actually talking about himself. Right?
Aren't you a Pike one trick?
At least I've got one trick.
I mean, to be fair,
Man, it's not
like,
as good as your Nunu, but you know.
I mean, couldn't this have been like seen coming, right? Because if we think about it, the support role could be impactful, and we saw this even back in 2012, 2013 with the rise of Mad Life as being like the first truly great mechanical support. Sure. And so he was showing the playmaking potential at that role. So hasn't this been a long evolution to this point right now where it was more demanding over time?
I think that a lot of the things that have helped the support role become so good is if you look at the last couple seasons, a lot of the champions that have became staples are more like playmaking aggressive support. So like things like Rakan came out in Season 7, and then now you have Pike, which I feel like these two champions allow their support to be so much better than before. Before, like, it was like you could do Thresh, like that was like your main skill champion. But besides for that, like things like Braum were so prevalent in the meta that it felt like, oh, what's the difference between Afromu Braum and Mata Braum? And like it's just all the same champion. Like you're limited. So now I feel like because the supports require so much skill, like a good Pike and a bad Pike, if you get your ultimate off and you get a reset, that can win you the fight. If the Pike player fucks up and like doesn't take into account a heal and misses the first ultimate, that's a completely different team fight. So I think that the rise of like all these different champions has allowed support to become better because not only are those champions strong, but then things that weren't strong before, because you'd never play like Leona into Braum when Braum was super strong. Braum was just a better version of Leona, but Leona's good into Pike, or like decent into Pike, pretty good into Rakan. So now you have like more engaged, more like skill champions coming into the meta because of what's played.
So coming into these play-ins and a lot of the matches that I've been watching from the recent finals and stuff like that, you see a lot of these kind of like CC chain setups and like heavy engage, people coming back to Renekton and running Renekton with Elise in the jungle and really like prioritizing that playmaking ability. Is this a direction that you guys like moving for League of Legends? Because it seems like oftentimes there isn't a lot of counterplay to it if you just get flashed on and then chain stunned.
I mean, it's better than the metas where people just farm for like 20 minutes and no one can kill anyone. So I'll take that.
It's really bad for AD carry, like right now, because you have to wait until 3 items until you're relevant. And even when you have 3 items, as you talked about Renekton's, there is an item called Shojin Spear. Whenever you use your ultimate and you auto-attack stuff, you get reduced cooldown. So AD carry would have space after bruisers would use their cooldown to auto-attack them down, but now there's no timing. Like, basically, these bruisers don't have cooldowns anymore.
I think that actually even also plays into why support's become so powerful as a role, because support isn't there to just babysit an AD carry and get him 200 CS and then give him a chance to win the game. The support's off half the time, saying, are you safe, right? We're both going to roam, and we're both going to try and match each other's roam to mid, and all of a sudden, it's the impact of what you have on mid lane seems to be what defines support at the moment, whereas actually AD carry, as he's saying, of all the like power players in the game, they kind of are like the red-headed step kid at the moment, and they're just off at one side while everyone's at the cool kids table, aren't they? They're just watching and going, I wish that was me. Even my support's there, my worthless jungler's there.
I prefer that to Season 7 where you had Ardent Sensor and AD carries building Targons.
God.
Because you get this item and you win, your AD carry is now the strongest person in the game in like 13 minutes.
So how does this affect teams that have superstar AD carry players, right? Because people will rank Perks very highly, or we are talking about Teddy. Is the importance of that role lessened now significantly? Like, is it hard for Royal to win, having Uzi being their like big name on that team?
Imagine a world where people in the bot lane, the first person you talk about is Hylissang, not Reckless. You talk about Core JJ, not Doublelift. And the key thing to note is neither of those players, those AD carries, are bad players, or even had bad splits. No one talks about them anymore.
I feel like they're one-dimensional, though, and that's why Perks gets so much credit. It's like, you've seen Doublelift try to play Vladimir bot lane and just lose every game he played on it, right? He can't. He's an AD carry player. He's only going to play AD carries. Like maybe he could play Sona, but Sona like kind of functions the same way as an AD carry. Where you have to play safe. You have to position like an AD carry for most of the game. I feel like so many of the AD carries that are like old school are not able to like advance and pick up different picks. I feel like players like Viper and even Teddy even though he doesn't pull them out, I feel like he has the capability to at least play those different style of champions. Like if you have Viper playing Syndra, I would take that over Uzi Syndra any day, even if you rate Uzi as a
Uzi used to play mid, and then he failed at playing mid, so he went back to bottom.
Yes.
That's actually one thing I'll say for this tournament. That's also why I think when you do these lists, Uzi I is overrated because of history. Because I don't think Uzi I, never mind what form he comes in, he can't do the things old Uzi I used to do. Like, he can't just carry a whole game. He can't just say, give me all the resources. Like, you put all your resources into the ADC in this meta, I don't think you're going to win Worlds. I think you're going to have a very, very hard time. And in fact, I think people are just going to feast upon your solo winners at that point in time. So I think actually he's the player where if I had to pick all the big names who I think are going to have the least, I'd say he's got to be one of them, because just playing, like you say, as the old school one-dimensional AD carry, no one's winning tournaments doing that right now.
But I like the one-dimensional AD carry.
Sure.
Like this is one of my problems with the way that the game has changed, and certainly it's not what it was a while ago, where it was everybody just playing mages in the bottom lane and AD carries are dead. But for me, one of the problems with the shift in League of Legends is that you spent years training these players to have very specific skill sets and specific mechanical abilities, and then it just got randomly thrown out. And now we're prioritizing a dimension to the players that I don't even want to exist. Like, I would be happier if it just didn't exist.
I like it because I'm not an AD carry player.
Exactly.
Because
you also, you're a jungler, and you're used to everything changing on you all the time. They're not. Yeah.
Every other role had to do it. You look at supports that they had to play enchanter supports, they had to play engage supports, they had to play supports that are passive in lane, they have to play assassins now with Pyke. Mid lane was the same. You had to play tanks mid at certain points. You had to play things like Lulu mid. Top lane had to play like Lulu top at points. Tank meta. They had to play bruisers. They have to play ranged carries. Like, all these other roles have to actually play the game, but AD carry is just allowed to exist with their 10 champions.
But I like that, and you built the expectation.
Yeah, for 7 years you built that expectation. You can only play AD carries.
I just wanted my AD carries to be brain-dead mechanical players. That's what I liked.
No wonder you like Doublelift so much.
That's why I hated all AD carry players, because I didn't like that they were just brain dead. I don't want them to be brain dead.
I liked that there was a role that you could just focus on mechanics and a limited, like, you're saying, like, if you don't want to play that role, then just go play literally any other role, right? I thought there was a niche there that was super cool, and I don't like the fact that this has been shifting away into something where we're talking about Syndra and Yasuo bot.
I just like seeing all the AD carries that thought they were just gods at the game get exploited for being super one-dimensional and not being able to like adapt to different methods.
But they were bred to be one-dimensional. It's not their fault. They were born that way, like, and raised that way. You know what I mean?
I don't know. I was always one of the people that thought that there was more ways to play League of Legends than just AD carry support bot. And I feel like people like defaulted into that meta for so long. And the numbers, like, I don't think that it's, oh, you lose like 4 AD and then they gave like some AD back. I don't think that it's like, oh, you lost 2 AD, now the role is fucking dead. I think that just people started experimenting with some of those picks, and it's like, you know what? Like, Syndra is actually a pretty damn good bot laner. It's pretty hard to beat Syndra with an AD carry.
Items changed, and also gold went so much to support, and support became so much stronger. Like, traditional AD carries, like Riot pushed them out. The crit item changes were huge in terms of AD carries being no longer the same kind of champions.
Yeah, definitely. But there were still AD carries that function without those crit items that should have been, that theoretically would be the next step. It's like, oh, well, crit got changed. Well, what about all these Bork AD carries? What about things like Kog'Maw, et cetera? Like, but people understood that there are different ways to play, and I feel like as soon as like their eyes were opened to that whole change where like no one was playing AD carries, and then when AD carries were rebuffed and they came back into the meta, it's like, wait, some of these things were actually good.
What problem is, though, one area I don't like it is just like a secondary effect, which is one of the reasons I think also AD carry is not that great a role in terms of like you don't want your best player to be that role, is every champion, it feels like, the last 30 champions that come out have like 1 million dashes, insane mobility, like low cooldown.
Roots
like,
everywhere.
Try being an AD carry sidestep and all that stuff. It's like me trying to go on Twitter and do a tweet.
But I mean, that's like the best AD carries, the best AD champions in the game are Kai'Sa and Xayah, because they both have a way to counter that type of thing. Somebody dashes on them, Xayah ult. Dashes on them, Kai'Sa ult, Kai'Sa stealth. These champions are still ridiculous. So, I mean, it's just a battle of like, hey, if you're gonna play an AD carry, you're not gonna win the lane and also be like the strongest late. You have to like make some type of sacrifice.
To be fair, I think it's also a knock-on effect of the fact every game ends at like 32 minutes. If we were having games that went 45 minutes, as you've seen if you've ever watched Splice play, the credit would go to the ADC. Of course, he'd be the guy getting all the kills. He'd be the guy who has his items at that point. So it's also like, if you're ADCs, like you just wait. Eventually there'll be a meta where it's longer again and where you can do these things again. Just at the moment, it's not about the late game team fight, which is the role of the AD carry, right?
Pretty much.
But anyway, enough crying about AD carry. I was a top lane fan. I had to watch people playing Dr. Mundo, who couldn't be killed for about 2 years. It's rubbish. People like Luca got to have a whole career. Pretend like they actually played the role. You know. So everyone's had hard times. That's all I'm saying, boys.
I miss tanks, though.
Really, what do you miss about tanks? The noodle fights.
Not in lane. I think you're
He
over.
means in the game. I miss the concept of a tank.
No,
in the team.
I don't miss Mundo Maokai top lanes. I miss like what Maokai initiations can do and the plays that they can set up.
Well, one thing I miss the tank for is obviously tank didn't have to be top lane. It could be jungle as well.
Yep.
What would you say about that, Dom? Because I have to say, if you look at some of the jungler, I think this is one of the reasons why Tarzan gets dissed on, as you say, people choose the descriptors that sound bad about the fact he's smart. Because basically being the brain jungler is not really the thing now, is it? It's more about just like the heavy ganking, like trying to just make tons of kills all over the map.
I still feel like it's valuable. I just feel like people underrate it because it doesn't look as nice. Like when you see Clid play Lee Sin and make a ridiculous Lee Sin play, you're like, oh my God, that guy is so good. But if you see like Tarzan make the same play, get the same kill, but he does it on Olaf, it's just like, whatever, it's brain dead bruiser jungler. Like people just don't like seeing power champions. They'd rather see like the finesse skill champions.
And we're going to get to see a lot of Lee and Elise in the meta.
You think a lot of Lee and Elise?
Yeah. What else do you think we're going to see?
I think Kiana jungle is going to be really, I feel like that's going to be a pick that like kind of defines who the carry junglers are because that champion is just insane on the patch that they're playing. And a lot of people, I feel like just kind of left it off. They're like, oh, it's not going to be that strong. But the better junglers that play it, like when you look at Xerxes play it, he understands when you have the water element level 3, your EQ is a guaranteed stun. You have a guaranteed stun and ability to chunk 60% of somebody's health regardless. You combo that in with almost any laner, that should be a kill. That I feel like that champion's gonna have a lot of presence in the meta. You're gonna see Rek'Sai as a counter to Lee. You're gonna see Olaf into Elise. You're going to see some Karthus, I think, as well. So yeah, I think there's going to be a few options in jungle.
I mean, when they get through, because I was looking at the Loco sent me some links and I was looking at the pick and ban stats from play-ins, and Kiana's the #2 most banned hero.
That's also
champion behind Pantheon.
To be fair,
So like,
just mid lane, you worried about.
If that is good, like if that trend continues, like there's not going to be as much Kiana as there could be.
But meta develops, so initially, like a meta will start with certain champions getting permaban, and people will discover champions, and certain bans will get unlocked.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot to ban right now.
So what do you think? I mean, you say Kiana, and I was watching the Xerxes games where he was like hard carrying, and I know that was a frequently banned champion against them when they were playing when Splice was playing in the LEC. Yep. So what are the big picks that you think are going to come, like sleeper picks that are going to end up being very powerful in this patch?
Or in jungle only?
I mean, in general.
In any role,
yeah.
right? Okay.
Pantheon's the most broken champion by far. That champion is impossible to trade with. If you gank for that champion, it's almost always going to be a kill. He can be flexed, top, mid, even support. So he's going to be #1 champion by far. After that,
I think Yuumi is going to be like that's a problem. It's like if you're blue side, right? You have to ban what Pantheon, Yuumi, and then probably Kiana too. Those are your 3 bans. Like, so what happens if you're playing against one of these teams that has special picks where you don't want to see them on like a certain thing? Like, for example, when you look at G2 and then you have to factor Yasuo into that too. What do you ban? Because Pantheon wasn't out in playoffs in LEC. So that was just one of the dimensions where people just now they have to ban an extra champion. So there's going to be, I think it's really going to come up with, or it's going to be on the teams to come up with an answer to Pantheon. Like it's going to be like, is there anything that's actually good into Pantheon? There has to be something. I believe that everything in the game has some type of counter, but I don't know if anyone's found it into Pantheon yet.
That's usually how the meta evolves. Like the permaban champions, people either start trading them or open them up and they have a counter prepared, and we'll start seeing teams do that. Yeah. As Dom mentioned, there's teams like Fnatic who play TF, where if you give them TF, it makes the game so incredibly hard, and you also can't practice versus a team that plays TF and scrims like the way Fnatic does. So you have to kind of open them up and figure out what you're going to do versus them.
That's also why I'm always interested to see the development in a big, like, month-long tournament like this of, what you say there, which is when it goes from being like the pick you have to ban because they're going to win if they get it, to being the trap pick. So obviously the whole reason why you then let it through is because you literally want them to pick it. So in that scenario, they think, well, I have to pick it, don't they? They've left it open. But that's the trap, isn't it? If you've prepped all that time and then they think it's just business as usual, whatever it was a month ago, then they're going to fall right into that, because the amount of teams who actually have the discipline to say, like, even though that's a super strong pick right now, we won't pick it because we didn't plan to. I think a lot of teams in these kind of phases feel like you have to pick the power pick.
Well, you saw it with Splice. When they played their best of 5, they actually just didn't play the Pantheon. So the other team respect banned it the first 2 games, and then the 3rd game, they're like, okay, let's leave it open and see what happens. Or the 5th game, I think, they're like, let's leave it open, see what happens. And Splice had to ban it on blue side because they're like, oh, we actually don't play. I think the thing that's going to determine who plays the different OP champions is who the strong players on the team are. So like a team like Splice, Vizichachi is not the carry of that team, right? Like he's kind of a role player. He plays Gnar, he plays Shen. It's like he's going to be on an island. He's just going to like Cho'Gath, like things where he's just going to be on island, try to show up. He's going to be relatively like more of a tanky style player. So giving him something like Pantheon, it's like, okay, now it's up to you to carry the game with this strong pick, but you're not the carry of our team. So like a team like TL, I think could be exploited by the Pantheon pick. I don't know if Impact's going to be getting the Pantheon and carrying the whole game.
It's also a matter of practice as well, because when the meta turns into something where the Pantheon pick is just sort of globally banned within scrims or within the professional game, a lot of players just don't even have experience on the pick. Like they'll think it's strong, but because they don't have the experience themselves, they may not be able to execute on it. Or, I mean, also, like you were talking about earlier, the counter problem comes up because if they're not playing it, they may be unaware of counters against it as well. So I think the longer things drag on, you can see some team is going to make a mistake where it goes through and they think they can play it and they just completely bomb.
Yeah, you're on blue side, they open up Pantheon, you get real nervous first picking it because they have to have a plan if they're letting you pick Pantheon, and most likely than not, you're not going to have practice on the champion like you mentioned.
And remember, the other angle as well is, even if you didn't, like let's say you tried to be disciplined when we shouldn't play it, well, then there's also the double bluff that they're not going to pick it.
Yep.
So you're in a pretty bad spot there making that shot.
Whenever we hit Worlds, and like you're saying, over a long enough month-long timeline, we've just seen these picks before that end up being permabanned, and then people just royally screw up with them in the end because they just don't have the experience necessary to play them.
Yep. I'll give you the example as well that always to me defines who like the best player in the tournament was. The classic example for me was like the 2015 Worlds where SKT won, and literally I think in this tournament, I think Faker played like 5 of the 7 Rise games in the entire tournament, and he was just playing it all the time, winning, and no one else was even copying him. It's like that means that the other mid laners saw it and were like, actually, it's just him. It's not even the champion's that good. Like, if you can do that, if you can play the edges and it doesn't become the meta, you must be a god.
Yeah, I mean, I think the main strength of a pick like Pantheon specifically is just the flexibility of it. And I feel like not every team is going to be able to flex it. Like, if you can't flex it, I'm sure there are lane counters, but the strength of the pick is that you can put it anywhere.
I want to see interesting euphemism there. Right, I want to see actually a world where, like, that's why a team like G2 is the one that's a very sexy one, because they're the kind of team that, even when they pick it, you don't know where it's going. Like, the amount of lanes they can put some of these picks in. So good luck drafting against a team like that. You've got to know exactly what you want to do, basically. Anyway, speaking of making ridiculous predictions, isn't it time we go to...
Before we do that, I have a question for you guys, just because I haven't seen this team, because in my research, they weren't playing in the play-ins, but they were automatically seeded in as GAM. And I wasn't reviewing the Vietnam game. So what's the take on GAM esports coming into this? Do they have any shot? What are their strengths? I've seen Lovey play before, but not recently.
I also haven't watched them.
I haven't watched them.
Okay, well, nobody knows.
Yeah, like Taiwan and Vietnam are the 2 regions that I just like didn't watch coming into this. And,
I didn't know if anybody had seen like a finals in Vietnam, or at least had some level of
it seems like all the Vietnamese experts are just saying the same thing they say about every Vietnamese team, which is like they're really aggressive, but they have no macro. So
it's the old China remark.
Yeah, it's like China, but even more like one-dimensional in terms of that playstyle. Theoretically, they could do well against Splice because that is the counter to what Splice does, but I just have a feeling that they're not going to perform well enough to get out of the group.
It's not like what it used to be, where the only region you really had to watch was Korea, and then the other regions were just kind of there. Now I think Europe, China, and Korea, all 3 are very relevant, and if you have extra time, then you watch NA.
Well, I think there's a couple NA games that tend to be relevant, right? But You guys, we're looking at the MSI results, and this is something where NA did very well, right? So
the big problem is
how
this.
How much of an outlier is that?
The real issue is this, as you've alluded to. Actually, every time Rift Rivals, the same thing. Everyone comes in, they always slam Team and go, "Oh, they definitely can't compete with." Like people would have made it sound like Fnatic's up here and Team Liquid's down here.
Yeah.
But always they perform better than people expect. The big problem is this, though, is most of their strengths and how they want to play don't line up with what people see as the most effective in the meta. So unfortunately, people almost see them as succeeding in spite of that, but no one wants to step behind them and go, I know that they're going to win against this team and they're going to go. So I kind of fall into that camp as well. Like I feel like they have a sleeper chance to do well and to get a nice playoff run, but it's hard to pick them against a lot of these big name teams.
I feel like they are definitely underrated. I feel like they're pretty much same level as Fnatic. Like the way that I view the Western teams, I see it's like G2 as number 1, and then you have Fnatic and TL as 2, 3, but they're equal in my mind. And then under that you have Cloud9 as the third team, and then Splice and Clutch are just not very relevant.
The big problem is this one is when you have the players Team Liquid has, I don't care what meta it is, you should always have some kind of a chance.
Sure, yeah.
They definitely have some very, very good players. If you want to look at the G2s,
they have 2 former world champions.
Basically no one in that team is bad by any measure whatsoever. Now, true, you can't play through every lane, you're not super early game, skirmish focused, etc. But there's always going to be more than one way to play the game. That's Splice has shown us.
Yeah, I think the main problem for TL that makes people nervous is that people are rating jungle as a very important role, and their worst player is their jungler. So that's why you have to be nervous about Team Liquid. That being said, Smithy is somebody who normally can play against people that are better than him. It doesn't seem like if
he's also kind of got that impact thing going from him, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's hard to shit on, which is why I feel like TL should come out number 2.
That should be on the poster, shouldn't it?
Yeah, some players
Team Liquid impact, hard to shit on, I will dominate. And I've tried.
Certain players are like that. I mean, there's players that are easy to shit on, right? Whippo is a player who's really good, but he's easy to have.
Oh, absolutely.
He'll just go 0-5.
He'll just turn up with a bib on, licking his lips.
If you like 2014, 2015 League of Legends, you're gonna like TL because that's their playstyle. They like the team fights. They like waiting for AD carry to get.
That's the most depressing review on the poster. If you like 2015 League of Legends, you're gonna love Team Liquid 2019.
So weirdly, because of time zones, the most League of Legends that I've watched this past year has been LEC and LCS because they're on when I'm awake. So I've actually seen quite a bit of TL this year.
Yeah, I definitely think they're underrated.
All right, so as we look at beautiful Team Liquid right here on your screen, we're going to talk about actual group predictions and argue over them.
Okay.
So we're going to take a walk over here with you to this whiteboard where you will do your pickems.
Oh, okay.
Loco and I have already done ours, so I think we've got some...
I changed mine from our show.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I think I should change mine before the games go tomorrow. We can get a pen, I'm sure.
Yeah, do we have a pen?
I'll go wander off and acquire a pen.
Yeah. Well, mine are...
Go on this side, you two. Will on this side.
Mine are...
Present yours. Look towards the camera. Here. We're getting used to it. Good job. Good job.
Wait, are we on the camera? I can't even tell.
It should be on this one.
Yeah.
Awesome.
We've never done a show this advanced
We're
before.
figuring out.
All right. So why don't you put your number 1 and number 2 next to the teams in the group? 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay.
For
so
every team in groups, and we'll have a chat.
This I have the same. I have this exact thing. So this would be...
I feel like we should go each group by group.
Nope.
Right.
Let's go group by group.
All right,
we can contrast who picked who, instead of doing the whole thing. So do group A first.
Okay, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4.
What level of confidence on these picks?
I'm pretty confident that it's going to go like this. The only wild card here is Griffin. I think HKA is just trash. They're just going to lose. They're going to be 4th by far. I think Griffin could choke. If you see Griffin just having a really bad first couple games, maybe they just choke because they have the capability of choking. It's pretty known that they underperform in tense situations. So I could see them maybe choking and Cloud9 doing well, but if all teams play up to the level that I expect them to, this is what I see it being.
All right, take a step back, would you? Yes, perfect. Now we can all see your beautiful face. So we're looking at the groups right now. We can show Locos and mines. I had exactly the same thing here. I think there's an outside shot for C9, but for the most part, I think in this scenario, G2 is an easy favorite in this group, and Griffin should be a pretty easy second pick.
I agree with you guys. The only thing I disagree with is I think Cloud9 has bigger upset potential than you guys are giving them credit for, because I think Griffin, this is their second international tournament after Rift Rivals. and they have extremely young players. Okay, then this is their first international tournament.
True.
First international tournament, extremely young players with no head coach. There's definitely a lot more upset potential than you guys are giving them credit for.
Not only that, but C9 has been weirdly powerful in best of ones. They beat Team Liquid in both of the best of ones in the summer split. So I think that in a one-off environment, sometimes they can overperform or at least surprise people. So I think there's an okay shot.
My big
right?
problem is this. Still to some degree, I always, when I look at teams, I also look at like player matchups, right? Sneaky is in for a world of hurt in this group.
Yeah, definitely.
He can potentially be a massive problem for them. And then you look at the other teams as well. So Niski's in theory one of the best players on Cloud9. He has to go against Caps and Chovy. Like that's just you're just putting your strength into a bad matchup there. So I actually personally, do I have a pen to use for this?
You can.
I'm going to be the only person who does this. I'm going to go number 1 Griffin.
Wow.
Number 2 G2. Number 3 Cloud9. Number 4. That didn't really work.
We'll have one functional pen.
There we go. Right, and the reasoning is this. Right, if Griffin turns up and they're good, I actually think overall they are the best team over here, just in terms of these matchups. G2, I saw them lose 2 games to Fongvu Buffalo. People want to tell me it didn't happen. Like, there's a world G2 absolutely can lose to Cloud9. They could maybe even lose a team like this one. Because here's the thing, that's exactly the sort of team that G2 will play a stupid, disrespectful draft against and give them a chance. If they just played like a Korean team would, they never lose to these 2 teams. They could only lose to Griffin. So I think there's a world in which Griffin just plays safe. They play all the standard stuff. They have chances themselves, by the way, remember, to do like mage bot lane against Cloud9. So I think there's a world in which Griffin can win this group.
Wait, you don't think they learned their lesson after losing to Fungwood Buffalo?
That's how I feel too.
G2's never learned their lesson in any particular regard. Because they've never failed local. They've never actually had the real moment where they hit rock bottom. They still won that tournament. They all think it's banter. Like they think it's hilarious what they did in Game 5 when they were picking like stuff that could have ruined the whole game for you against SKT. So I do not think G2 has learned their lesson. I think Grabs will be on my side on that one. So should we go to Group B, aka the most ridiculous group in the whole tournament?
Worst group. This is the group where you realize that the tournament format is just complete.
What's great about this is, because listen, everyone, get the camera on me right now. This is where this show is very different from Riot shows. Because on a Riot show, right, we'd have to talk about all the teams. Here's what we're going to do on this show. The question is just, is it FPX or Splice first? We're not even going to rank J-Team and GAM, because who cares?
All right.
Who cares who comes last in that group?
I have so little confidence in Splice, I actually think GAM could be.
Oh, no, all right. Yeah. So let's show the pickups first. So these are my pickups for this group. I think pretty simple. Although you guys soured me on Splice, I will say a little bit tonight where maybe there's an outside that GAM could come up, but I think, you know, this is pretty consensus, right?
Yeah, go on.
It's pretty consensus here for Group B.
Yep.
Fun Plus Phoenix, Splice, GAM, J-Team.
My problem with this, right, is the angle against Splice is you just list all the things you don't like about Splice. The problem I have is this, is like, right, why does that mean J-Team can beat them? Why does that mean GAM can beat them? If Splice showed me one thing this year, it's that they're brilliant at beating bad teams. They are one of the best teams I've seen. Like, they are just so stable against those bad LEC teams. They wreck them.
How bad do you think Rogue was?
Rogue's way better than GAM and J-Team.
How many games of J? I will be honest. I have not seen a single game of J-Team or GAM.
I don't need to. They need Worlds because they play in a region you don't watch, you moron. Think about it. I don't watch them, but they must be good if they made Worlds. What are you on about? Like, the 4th best Korean team must suck.
He's bought into the Riot.
I know, yes, hasn't he?
So we opened up this segment by saying that Dom says, this is the proof that the Riot, the format for Worlds is problematic. And Loco's like, well, they must be here, but I don't bother watching them because why would I?
Are you
Mark
just
Merrill,
the
I'm a
Riot
good
Kool-Aid
player.
guy?
It's a 10-year anniversary.
I wonder if Mark Merrill even is aware that it's the 10-year anniversary at this point. But this group, I have Fun Plus, Splice.
Write your numbers down. Go for it.
Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4.
So same.
Yep. I think that Splice should beat GAM. I mean, there's a world where Splice just suck under pressure. I mean, every time that they are in like a tense situation, they do underperform. If you look at the Fnatic best of 5, where they're like, oh, they're looking pretty good. Let's see what happens in this Fnatic best of 5. They just get 3-0'd. Like, it's like, and then they're like, oh, well, we were tired because we played 2 best of 5s in the last 2 days. No, you were just that much worse than Fnatic. When Rogue put a little bit of pressure on them, they get 3-0'd there too. Like, I think there's a chance that Splice collapses, but I think that the chance that Splice collapses is less likely than the chance that GAM is actually good.
Yeah. I just don't see it. I don't see any scenario really where we get that. And I think everyone has FPX winning. Come on.
Do we have Loco's pick'ems here at all? that we can take a look at?
Yours on that one.
Yeah, probably.
I think I might have had, Gammon Splice Switch.
Right, wait a second. What's aside from
You watch them, but you think that they're good.
wait a minute, let me just check. No,
I know
let me just
Splice
check.
is bad.
Did you really just admit you haven't watched Gam play?
What? Yeah.
How many games of Gam have you watched play?
None. I think Splice is that bad though. I've seen
That
them
doesn't
play.
even make sense.
No.
So by your logic,
I know that
Gam
they're
is
bad.
better than Rogue.
No, okay.
So Rogue would beat TSM in the best of 5 and then lose the best of 5 to Gam. Like, back to back.
No. No. Okay.
We've
wait.
incorporated the attacking local segment.
No. Okay. No. I've worked with you. I worked with you to know. Oh my God, it's shitty to work with Thorin. If someone asked me, do you think a stranger is going to be politer than Thorin? Even if I don't know that stranger, I would say yes. That stranger would be politer than Thorin. It's the same thing. I don't know Gam, but I know they're going to be worse than Splice because I know how bad Splice is.
Better than Splice, you mean? But yes. So your logic is the unknown is definitely better than this horrible Splice team that
Than the horrible Duncan, yes.
Every single person who's on the Splice staff, the social media, the families of the players, when they get out of this group, at Locodoco on Twitter. He's the guy. He literally said, I'm picking someone I've never even seen just because I really hate this team. All right?
I mean,
You've done worse.
I've never seen Vietnam do well. Like, when have they ever, like, Vietnam doing well is they win, like, 2 games in a group stage, and it's like, damn, they went 2-4. Look at how upcoming this region is. That doesn't mean that they're actually good. That just means that they spoil random games, and I feel like especially now, with people being aware of that play style, they've seen Levi play before. They understand that Gigabyte Marines is going to be about the early aggression. You should be able to prep for it.
All right. So we have to make a Lord bet over this.
Yeah. Wait for this one? No, this is no.
Listen, you picked them. And secondly, it doesn't have to be like a 50-50 bet. Like, the idea is we can slant it. Like, we'll give you the good odds on it, you know. Because we have to give him some ridiculous odds. Like, that's got to be, like, I would personally put that like 1 in 10 chance that they get out of the group or something, you know. So we'll make it like his end of it, if he wins, is really good and ours is just like some meager, you know.
I mean, we can just do it based on time. We'll do one.
Put it this way, if you win this one, bear in mind that's a ridiculous one, we'll do something ridiculous, like a whole segment where we're just bowing to you, and like people are doing like all stuff against you. It's going to be a Lord bet.
What happens if I lose? What happens if I lose?
I'll feed you grapes.
If you lose, we'll make it very, very minor. You just have to tweet like, I apologise to Splice. I will never again pick a team I've never watched to beat you. I think that's pretty reasonable. I think you should do that already, quite frankly, whether you win or lose. But, you know, that's pretty fair.
If you're watching, hit me up, okay? I'll help you guys out.
Yeah, now he's just
want them to win or lose.
Now he's going to compromise the integrity of the bet. This is what you do. On your Lord bets, you compromise the integrity of the bets with hidden information.
I have no hidden information about Gam. I have no hidden information.
You're saying like, oh, well, I was going to go coach them or whatever, right? Yeah. Like, this is the thing when you won the Lord bet, when we didn't know that Lustboy was going to be on TSM.
Well, wait, you know? Okay, so for context for that Lord bet, you knew I was going to go to coach TSM, and you knew I would make changes if that team was bad.
I didn't know specific changes, but whatever. All right, so what's your ranking, Thorin?
Yeah, can I have a pen? I'm just going to go with a boring one here. So I'm going to go like, number 1, FPX, obviously. They're actually one of the best teams in the tournament. I'm going to take Splice as a comfortable 2. I still think they're good enough past all. As I say, like, this is what used to happen in every discussion. Unfortunately, because Splice was like 3rd, 4th in Europe, it would sound like you're only ever dissing them, like, because all you do is compare them to why they're not G2 and Fnatic, basically. So it always made them sound rubbish. Like I said, they were amazing against bad teams. Like, the SKs of the world aren't just going to smash Splice. So I'm taking them number 2. I don't even know the difference between these two teams. Like, I actually feel personally like LMS typically for me has always been better than Vietnam. So I would probably take J team number 3. I don't know. I know almost nothing about GAM myself, so I'll admit that's pure ignorance on that one. Hence why I won't make a bet involving my reputation.
I got forced into the bet. You guys said, let's make the Lord bet.
Oh, and I had a gun to your head when you do that pickem, son.
Working with you feels like having a gun to my head all the time.
That was in my contract, but they said, there's no open carry laws around here. Right?
Oh, no, it's all right. You guys, you can hold on to the pen, because Loco and I have ours on the...
Anyway, we've spent way too much time. We've spent more time on Group B than the teams are going to. Let's go to Group C. The best one of the tournament, by the way.
Actual interesting one. So you want to start this time, Loco? Let's pull up your picks again.
Your picks
let's pull up
I
your
already
picks
know
again.
it's like SKT first. I bet he's put Fnatic second, like a little pleb. Let's see.
I did it too.
Come on.
It should be Fnatic second.
You can wait. Just wait your turn. Like, come on.
All right, so SKT number 1, Fnatic number 2, Royal number 3.
Does SKT win all the games, by the way?
No, I think they're going to drop games. I think this game is really dangerous for these top 3 teams because it's going to be such a tight group. If Clutch takes a game off of you, it can spoil your entire tournament. So,
just for a second. So, Splice can't beat a team you've never watched GAM, but
Yeah.
Clutch can win games off these three teams who are favourites.
I think it's so unlikely. I think Lyra and Demonte are so far below any other mid-jungle duo in this. But if you do lose a game, like, let's say Splice loses to GAM, right? That's not a big problem in this group. But in this group, if you lose a game to Clutch,
spoiler, yes, exactly.
if you lose to
Yes,
Clutch,
agreed.
it's a huge problem.
Yes. Everyone has to basically beat Clutch 2-0 by default.
I think SKT making out of the group, like mostly people aren't going to disagree with, and the big discussion is Fnatic or Royal.
Yes.
I think Royal, they have this terrible habit of always playing to Uzi and overly prioritizing bot side, and in this meta, I don't think that's the way to play.
Look, I mean, just watching Fnatic in the LEC, I thought that they've showed a lot of development over the summer split. I thought the LEC finals were incredibly exciting and close and compelling. And so, given the form that we saw from Royal in the LPL playoffs, I'm not sold entirely, but in my pickems too, I had SKT, Fnatic, Royal, Clutch in the order that's on there.
Same thing. That's
Right.
my order.
But that one works.
Right. Because here's the problem, and I'll explain why. I'm going with what might look like boring ones here. So
I'm doing the same thing.
I'm going 1 SKT, but I'm going 2 RNG.
Sure.
3 Fnatic, 4 Clutch, right? The reason, and basically, I need to explain this one here. The problem is this: if it was almost any other team here rather than Royal, like say that was, could have been IG instead. Say that was, I mean, I don't know who else. I'd have to figure out the random element. The problem I have is this, right? If you're on Fnatic, as I said, for brilliant players like Hylissang to do what they want to do, he has to have his laners be good, right? In this matchup here, right, Reckless is going against Teddy and Uzi I. Yeah, good luck there, Reckless. Remember, Reckless isn't a guy who flexes a million mages, so that's a lost matchup. Then you've got the mid lane. Everyone's loving Nemesis, right? What a sick player. Nemesis is going against Faker and against Xiaohu. And everyone out there who doesn't watch LPL is going to go, Xiaohu, he's rubbish, etc. He has never been a rubbish player.
He's not rubbish.
He's an underratedly good player.
But they weirdly stick him on stuff like Karma.
And I guarantee he'll do fine against Nemesis. So I just think, just matchup-wise, I'm taking Fnatic to not do it. Like, it's sad because I actually was thinking to myself, if this was IG, I would be picking Fnatic to go through, just like people think I'm a Fnatic hater.
Reckless,
I'm a Fnatic Real.
Well, we're not talking about the fundamental problem, which is that we talked about why it's problematic Group B. The question really is in Group C, are SKT, Fnatic, and Royal 3 of the top 5 teams in this entire tournament?
I'll also throw in as well, like, I think 3 out of 5 is too much. I'll take
it's a
2 of them
question.
can be.
I would not put Royal. Like,
I don't think they should be at all.
My top 5 for this tournament would be SKT,
Got it.
G2, FunPlus,
Griffin, maybe?
Griffin, and Fnatic.
Yeah.
That'd be my top 5.
That's more like what mine is. That's the thing. That's what you've actually.
So
just
you
to make this point, like, I agree with him. As a team, I think Fnatic is better than RNG.
But the matchup's bad.
Yes.
The matchup.
And I'll also add like a different angle on Loco's angle. I don't think Clutch is really going to spoil anyone, but these guys can all spoil each other's tournaments. Like obviously in a universe where RNG beats SKT, but then they beat Fnatic twice, like, that feels so unfair if you're Fnatic. You're like, what the hell? Like we lost like you did to you, but. So there's a lot of mixtures.
It just depends on what you value. Like, so I agree with you that I think Fnatic is a better overall team than Royal. Like, they function more cohesively than Royal do, and I feel like that's gonna give them a higher chance to get out of the group. Like, obviously, there's a percentage chance that Royal gets out. I don't think that Royal has no chance, but I just think that it's more likely that a team that knows how to play together, that is a more cohesive unit, is going to beat a team that might be able to outperform individually.
One thing that is a bit puzzling to me when I saw everyone's analysis is a lot of people did this. We all just tunneled, like, is it Fnatic? Is it? The part I'm amazed at, that's why I asked Loco, is does people think SKT goes 6-0? Because I don't.
No,
I actually think
hell
SKT also, there's so much danger in here.
Well, I feel like just in general, European teams normally can take games off Korean teams just pretty easily. So
Especially in B1, of course.
I think there's a world where Fnatic could even get out first. Like, it just depends on.
Agreed.
I don't think anybody's, and nobody is really sold on our predictions in this group. Like this could turn out many different
I think it's just
ways.
you have to give credit for, like, SK Telecom is still Faker's team that won Korea and is coming into Worlds looking good, and their jungler is playing well.
Right, here's the thing. I know Group D is going to get spicy. Because I've already seen some of the people's pickems. So who's going first on this one?
I'll go first. So
Dominic can go.
All right, so I think I'm giving IG a little bit more credit than I probably should. This is just based off gut instinct that Team Liquid is not the type of team that's just going to dominate this group. I feel like Team Liquid is not the best of one team. If you look at even MSI, they dropped a lot of games in group stage. I think they went like 4-6, or maybe they ended up 5-5, but they lost a lot of games and they ended up just only beating
even
teams.
in the summer split, like I was saying earlier.
Yeah, they're just not a great best of one team. So I actually have IG doing well in this group, and this is mainly just because I think that Team Liquid is not that great, and I think Damwon is super, super overrated. I think they're the most overrated team in the entire tournament right now. I have them 3. AHQ is irrelevant because they're a Taiwanese team. So
And by the way, just to tie it in, since you mentioned it earlier, in case people weren't listening, when Dom initially talked about Team Liquid before, one of the things he said about Damwon was, right, Nagori is not just going to destroy Impact. Impact's made an entire career of playing against those carry top laners. And then in the mid lane, like, Showmaker's a good player, but I mean, who has him as way better than Jensen? I think he's probably a comparable player.
I think that the way I see it is this: the mid and the top difference. Like maybe Damwon has a better top laner, definitely have a better jungler. Maybe they have a little bit of a better like mid, but those are very, very small advantages, right? Where I think that Damwon has a terrible bot lane and Team Liquid has a very good bot lane. And I feel like that's enough to make up the difference of the top side of the map.
Where are you going with this one, Loco?
Mine's spicy. I'll wait for my pickem to show up so you can do your markers.
So, do mine now then?
Yeah, you can go first.
Oh, no, you got yours right there.
So I have TL at number 1. I thought about this a lot, and I switched my mind from earlier on Monday where we did our original pickems.
They should be number 1, but I just don't trust them.
So for Damwon and Invictus, it's all potential and it's all feeling.
Why, give us the reason for Team Liquid. Why are they number 1?
Well, it's more so on Damwon and Invictus.
Right, okay.
I think they're all potential, and we talk about their ceilings, like IG is the defending world champions, Damwon has Nuguri, they have Showmaker, but we're talking potential, and realistically, no one ever plays up to your potential and like how good you can be, and you play somewhere in the middle. And I feel like if they play somewhere in the middle, TL's average and TL's height is so much easier to reach for them, so I think TL will edge out both Invictus and Damwon Gaming.
How do you feel about TL in best of ones?
I mean, if you're talking about potential, then I think you have to talk about IG and Rookie and the Shy reaching some crazy level.
For example,
but that's not likely. You're talking about them reaching crazy levels. Like, how likely is it that they return to that kind of form?
I mean, Rookie spent most of his career at a pretty epic form.
Here's the counterpoint I would give. First of all, IG went through that whole thing where they lost their jungler. Like, he's coming as a sub now, but we assume he's not going to be playing in the game. So already you changed the dynamic of the team. And then secondly, it's all well and good saying the Shy and Rookie had like bad splits. They did, but they play in the LPL, the most talent-stacked region in the world. Like, if they'd been playing in NA, I'm sure they would have still looked very good and been MVP candidates. So personally, I'm going to go a different one on this one. I'm actually going to take IG to go first. Why does this not work when I do it?
There you go.
I'm going to take IG to go first. That just doesn't work. Can I have another pen?
Just take the blue one.
That's we have a whole studio, but we couldn't get working markers.
Right, and the logic for that is basically, since I think all three of the, I'm forgetting HQ, I don't know much about them, I don't expect they're going to do much here. When I look at Team Liquid, IG, Damwon, they all have an element where they're super fragile. Like, they could just completely fall apart, blow the whole group, even play way below their potential. So the difference is, IG just has so many wicked players. Like, they have 3 of the sickest, like, potential laners in the whole tournament. So they could also, as well, play through any lane they want as well. So I think that's, just in terms of, like, if I'm looking at this group, I take them to go first. I'm actually also going to be brave and say Team Liquid 2. And the reason why is, as I said earlier, I think Damwon is a good team, but it's a little bit too one-dimensional the way they play. Like, it's obvious which lanes they're going to play through. It's obvious where the picks are going. It's obvious what you want to avoid. That doesn't mean you can execute and beat them. They might still be able to beat Team Liquid. And obviously, yes, Team Liquid has messed up a lot of tournaments, but not this year. So I'm actually saying Team Liquid this time makes it. And I'm taking Damwon third and then AHQ just fourth for the sake of it. So I'm actually, believe it or not, taking Team Liquid to get out of groups. But I'm going number 2.
All 3 of us have TL getting out. Do you also want to?
Yeah. My picks, but I had Damwon first, but you guys may have changed my mind. I was definitely hemming and hawing more over this, but I had seen more games of Damwon recently through the plans. And my logic on this is that Damwon has had probably, I think, really consistent solo laners. And we were talking earlier that, you know, you may not like their bot lane, but AD carry is a potentially less relevant role right now. And given that IG really hasn't sold me, because if we look at, they were, 9-6, I think, in the summer split. They got knocked out of LPL playoffs in the first round. They barely made it in through the play-ins. So it's like, I'm not really wowed, even though if we talk about ceiling, yeah, sure, Rookie and the Shy are like, they were the reason they won Worlds, right? They were the principal dominating forces. So if they can return to that form, then maybe things change, you know, turn out a little bit differently. But I think Liquid's going to get out as well. Whether it's 1 or 2, I have a lot of real reservations about what I've been seeing from IG.
I do think, though, one of the factors that goes against Team Liquid isn't even the historical, like, well, they didn't get out of Worlds in the past, double lifting group. I think the biggest factor that goes against Team Liquid is some of the players in their team who are very good players. If they just see names like the Shy and Rookie, like, that is intimidating immediately. It doesn't matter that those players aren't at that level. You see that name and you think, that's Rookie I'm playing against here. So if you have the balls then to go ahead and think you are better than him and out-execute, great, but I could see Team Liquid also having like the morale issues, etc.
I feel like the players that have to do that are the best players on Team Liquid at handling that.
Sure.
So when you have like somebody like I don't think Impact cares who he plays against. I think that he thinks that he can go even or like help his team with anything. I don't think he even considers lane matchups that much. Like, oh shit, I'm playing against the Shy. Sure. I gotta make sure I'm on my game. I think he just is like, I'm gonna go in, I'm just gonna play the best game I can. I'm gonna help my team as much as possible, try to get the win. I feel like that would be a problem if it was like, let's say instead of Invictus, it was Royal in this group, and then it's Uzi versus Doublelift. Then I feel like Doublelift is the type of player where he's like, I haven't been out of groups in like 15 years. Can I please win once? And then he sees Uzi on the other side, and he's been beat by Uzi before in tournaments.
Sure.
I feel like that would mindfuck the bot lane more than it would the solo laners of Team Liquid.
Another thing I want to add about Team Liquid, I don't think they can beat any of the first seed from any other group, SKT, G2, FunPlus. So if Team Liquid wants to make semis, they have to get out first in this group.
I mean, we also didn't talk about just the seeding in general, like you're saying, because the other factor is, too, in Group B, whoever takes second seed is basically a free ride to the semifinals for a #1 seed, right? So there's a lot of factors, and that's another reason why I think that this whole seeding thing is problematic, because sometimes you just escape with, like, basically you just get a junk quarterfinal match as a result sometimes, too.
Well, you're gonna get a junk quarterfinal match. Splice, Gam, JT, whichever one gets out of Group B, who can they possibly play against that they don't get 3-0'd by?
Yeah.
Well, the dream obviously is a Team Liquid comes #1 and then just gets like Gam or something, you know, or Splice. It's like it'll be fraudulent, but we'll take that semi.
I mean, it's so important for them to get #1. Do you think they can beat FPS, G2, SKT? I think they stand no chance.
Yeah, but here's the problem.
Seed.
There's a world in which if Fnatic wins that group, Team Liquid Fnatic. That's a pretty interesting match. I'd love to see that best of 5.
I feel like that's something that I would much rather see Team Liquid versus Western team than versus an Eastern.
I think both those teams would like that matchup. So here's the thing. Here's one of the rare times as a fan of NA and EU, you can cheer for each other. If you're a fan of Team Liquid, cheer for Fnatic. You probably want them to win this group. If you're a fan of Fnatic, definitely cheer for Team Liquid to come second. You probably want that as well.
I mean, it is only a 1 in 3 chance that they can actually draw that, so a little rough, but it's better than 0%.
Exactly.
Yeah, but then let's say if you do get Team Liquid first, right? Then you have potentially 2 good matchups. If Fnatic comes in second or something, then you could get the Fnatic or you could get Splice.
Here's the scenario that really sucks, though, is if you're any of these favorite teams here and you do all your job, you win your group, and then G2 just mess up a game and come second, and then you draw them in the quarters. Like, what was that? I did everything right. Like, why am I being punished? Yeah. But that's a possibility.
Happened to KT. They got first seed and then they met IG.
It's almost like we'd get a more accurate ranking of the teams like 1 through 8 if there was a loser's bracket or something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah, and we could have had that rematch too.
And obviously it would be appropriate because NA would end up in the losers bracket.
There you go.
Also known as the low bracket.
It's not possible. You could not run a tournament like that. It's never been done.
And also, they'd have to get out of groups to get into the low bracket. So.
Big problems all around. All right, well, I think it's going to wrap up our Cloud Connections segment here, brought to you by AT&T. Dominate, I mean, I'm pretty sure most people know where they can find you, but what's your stream? Where can they find you on the interwebs?
I will dominate on Twitch, at @LiquidDominate on Twitter. And yeah, that's pretty much where you can find me.
Cool, and you'll be doing more shows. So.
Yeah, I'll be doing our Face Check podcast with Loco.
Sick.
And yeah, we'll see. Maybe I'll end up on the 9s again. Who knows?
Yeah, it'd be great.
I won't tune in just because I don't want to spoil myself and hear which of your opinions then come out of Loco's mouth in the next episode. So I like to believe he actually comes up with them all himself, so just a naive little dream I have.
All right, we're going to take a look at a Roundtable video from Cloud9, and after that we will be taking calls on Discord. So God help us all as we talk to the plebs.
Yeah, let's go in a circle. Everyone say their first name, their gamer tag, and one interesting fact about them. Yeah.
Right, so hey guys, today we're gonna talk about world topics as a group, and yeah, let's start. All right, so which group looks strong? Zazel?
Oh, well, all the groups consist of great teams that are strong in their region.
You're wrong, Zazel. Group B looks like shit.
Group B looks really powerful.
Group A looks the strongest.
Yeah, I actually think I agree with Eric. I think that Group A looks quite strong.
Cloud9
having to go up against Blabberfish.
It's
quite terrifying.
Cloud9 is in Group A, so I would say Group A is probably the hardest group to get out of.
Well, I think Group C is the strongest.
Okay, you're delusional.
Because they have great teams.
Okay, but G2 apparently are the favorites according to ESPN. They're the #1 team.
Yeah.
So we have the #1 team in our group.
Yeah, we do.
And we're the #2 team, so.
Yeah. I don't think that's what ESPN said.
Ah, shit. Wait, isn't it going to be like Damwon, Splice, and Clutch, and
Hong Kong attitude.
Is it Hong Kong?
Yeah, that's the LMS.
That one's the biggest question. Is Hong Kong good enough to get out?
Well, there's also the Turkish team.
Wait, what's the Turkish? No, it's not Federer.
Royal?
Yeah, Royal.
So there's Royal, and then there's also
Unicorns of
Unicorns
Love.
Unicorns of Love.
I mean, we don't actually know how strong. I mean,
the three teams that would make it out is for sure Clutch, Splice, and Damwon, and then fourth one is.
Are you sure?
But by tradition, will Clutch Gamers go to a Game 5?
Yeah. It was pretty close to us last year.
Yeah,
so.
Gambit almost took us out of Worlds. So when I look at plans, I'm not like, yeah, it's free, you know, just of course.
I mean, it's hard, but I think they should make it.
Yo, I was just saying, like, who's gonna make it out of D? Assuming Damwon's in there.
It's
Damwon, TL,
IG,
Damwon, and
right?
IG.
Yeah.
And J team or H.
People are saying that TL will beat IG, but
pretty sure it's gonna be
IG.
IG.
is still pretty good. Yeah, but we're shooting for first. We gotta beat everyone anyway, Blabber.
It's not true. That's literally not true. You could have G. You could. If SKT gets first and they knock out G2 for us, I mean, not complaining.
I don't even know which teams are in which group.
So
TL. Okay, just change it up. TL and Damwon.
I disagree with you.
What did I disagree? It has to be Damwon and IG.
What? But TL beat IG last time.
No, but I mean, TL's just that good. They even beat C9, so I think they will make.
Actually,
yeah. And we're gonna be a first seed, so like,
No,
I think they can scrape by with second.
No, but the first seed of NA always chokes in groups.
It's true.
It's true, yeah.
The third seed does the best, right?
True.
Everybody thought I was nothing. Living for a play-by-play. I was always on to something. And I was doing it my own damn way. Yeah, nobody get me like I do. I ain't never be the same as you. Just trying to break through. Everybody try to put me in a box, but I'm getting kinda tired of breaking locks. Gonna live my life if that's okay. I'ma do it, yeah, I do it, there to do it my way. Stand back, watch me play, I'ma prove it. And all the shade they throw at me, well, I'm gonna use it. I ain't afraid, I'm where I belong. They said that I was nothing, well, nothing's got something going on. Everybody thought I was nothing. Now they do it, try to do it, wanna do it my way.
I think we're back.
We are back. Holy moly. All right. We're good.
Interesting campaign there, dare you. Our problem's always been the opposite. I dare too much. I don't really need the encouragement. That's not how I do it. It's the other way around. It's like, dare you shut up. No, I don't actually. You can win.
All right, so do you want to explain? We need to settle the terms
Yes.
of the Lord bet. And people might not be used to seeing the Lord bets if they are not.
One of the mistakes I've realised we've made on this show, Monty, is just like our on-cameras personas, we just pretend everyone in the whole world used to watch every episode of Summoning Insight. You know, if we're even in like airports and stuff. Remember on that old episode, the guy goes, I'm just making a panini, mate. Can you just shut up? So anyway, we used to have this concept called a Lord bet, right? And that's because, again, with how ridiculous our personalities are, the best possible thing you could do if you want to bet is have someone just call you Lord. Yes, that's the level of maturity we're operating on here, and I won't hear a word said against it. So what we do instead
I'm still in my 20s.
Instead of just betting money or something like that, what we like to do is, the loser has to call the other one Lord in some scenarios. So what we said earlier was, we did one Lord bet for the group stage, which was for Group A?
B.
No, Group B, let's make it simple.
Right,
Gam,
there we go. It was local
for me-
thinking Gam gets second place.
No, Gam places higher than Splice.
Okay, then, whatever.
Sure.
And the concept for this was, like, what we'll do is Loco just has to call us Lord and apologise to Splice, but we'll, like, treat him like an actual Lord. Like, we'll bow down to him. Well, like, I don't know how far we can go, like the full Egyptian pharaoh with all the leaves and stuff, but we'll do what we can. We'll make something fun out of it.
Sounds good. So we will do something fun.
Right, from Lords.
Fun for me, right? Not fun for you guys, fun for me.
So from the Lords to the plebs.
That's right, the transition.
Now, yes, there you go.
we shall open the phone lines up
as they were
to the nation of plebs. And the first pleb who's in here is the BAM Nation. So are you guys ready for this?
Let's do it.
All right, I have to unmute myself. So here we go. The BAM Nation, welcome to Summoning Insight from the Nines. Can you hear us? Can you hear me? I can't hear you, so that's very exciting.
We can't hear you at the moment.
If you can hear me, I cannot in fact hear you. And you're not currently muted. We may have to do a text
Might have to pick someone else here. This guy, he's missing his chance. You're going to literally be sat there in a bar one day going, huh, I could have been on that show once.
All right, the BAM Nation did have a question here.
Does anyone else have a question?
He did have one in the chat,
okay.
Which is, how does Ivern becoming range changed him? And Ivern is a champion I haven't seen a whole lot because he's not meta now and he was after my time. So I will shoot that over to you, Mr. Locodoco.
Ivern being ranged. Ivern is a very, very unique playstyle, and I'm not going to lie to you guys and tell you guys I'm an Ivern expert. So Ivern being ranged, I guess it changes the ganks a little. So he still had range attacks whenever he was in brushes, but now he can get the range attack without being in brushes. So getting that red buff off, red buff auto to get the slow off and get the Q will make his ganks a lot more consistent. Because that's like the biggest problem Ivern had. Like, how do I impact the game as a champion that's not very combat stat heavy?
Got it. So if the BAM Nation, if that was your question, you had several. I picked one of them. So I'm waiting to hear if we can get some more people via audio. We can do another one. I will read another one. So I'll pick one here. Here's a good one for you, Thorin. Fist of the Mist asked, how do you feel about Flame's career being effectively over due to military service since he didn't go to Worlds as a sub for Damwon?
This is an interesting one because this is one of those areas where you actually see the disconnect between what we're like on shows and what we're like as real people. Because people always tell me that, like, I've said Flame's the best top laner every year for the last decade. It's not true at all. If you just go back to even anything past 2014, I've always said he was a flawed player, did a lot of idiosyncrasies. Now, I liked some of those aspects, like wanting to carry the game. That's obviously a brilliant factor.
There's one thing I want to clarify. He's just as much of an asshole off the camera. That's an actual real personality thing.
Be that as it may. So the point I was going to make here was, though, people actually might naively think that I think, like, well, it's unfair. Flame should be playing because it's World. I saw a lot of people taking that angle, actually. Well, if he's going to retire, why can't they just let him play a few games? That's not the way you should ever decide any roster in any sport. You should always pick, no matter what the story is. I don't care if one player, his whole family has all problems and everyone's pulling for him. If he's not the right player and he's the sub, he shouldn't be in. So as a result, in the team they have, their team lives and dies by Naguri, and he is a very good player for what he does, which, funnily enough, has a lot of tie into what Flame used to do. So I personally think it's totally fine not to take Flame. I think even actually in a team like Damwon with a lot of mental fragility, you actually kind of like force Naguri to potentially hit his peak level by not having the backup plan there, but not having the guy who could just come in and save you and do that thing. Because I think what you saw from teams like SK Telecom is you kind of ruin you shoot the confidence of the guy who's the starter if he knows he can keep getting replaced by the veteran. I think you want to force the starter who's one of your best players to become a player who performs under pressure. So I think it was perfectly fine not to bring him. His time's passed. He had many, many chances to make Worlds and he didn't make it. So I always say this to people. I want it to suck when you don't make Worlds, when you don't win a tournament, because if it doesn't, then it's not as awesome when someone does win. Like, you have to have the penalty for not succeeding has to match up some proportionate level to how amazing it is to win and to actually take that one opportunity and to make good on it, you know.
There's someone I want to parallel with, or a team I want to parallel with. So the current Damwon coach, Coach Kim, he used to coach IG. And on IG, there was the Shy and the Duke, where Shy is this aggressive, like, all-out carry, and Duke is a little bit more of a control player, a little bit more veteran, a little bit more held back. And they had a very similar relationship to Naguri and Flame on Damwon, where the coach basically said, be as aggressive as you want, but if it's too much and if you're not able to control yourself, then the other tank player or the more veteran player comes in, and they did that to teach them better habits. Then eventually, it was just a carry player playing 24/7. So the exact same thing happened on IG that's happening on Damwon right now.
There's also an angle people actually missed, because I noticed because Damwon wasn't relevant in the playoffs basically in the spring, like they had their little boost when Flame came in and then they didn't do much. And it's only in the summer when they were like a power player and potentially were going to be top of the league at one point in time. What people missed was it wasn't just Naguri and Flame who were swapping. They used to do a hockey line basically. And what they used to do was, the logic was, they had a very good jungler called Canyon. And the problem was, they said at the time that he didn't have good shot calling instincts, basically. And so if you put him and Naguri, two like rookie type players, they were just lost and they weren't actually as effective as individual players as they should be. So what they would do is they would make it be Naguri and Punch, and it would be Canyon and Flame. And what they do now is, now it's just Naguri and Canyon. So it's what you wanted all along from the beginning. You had to go a little circuitous route and find, actually, I'll give them credit, like quite a clever method to sort of train them up separately so that then you could put them together and they kind of, some of the shot calling had robbed off these guys so that then you had a duo that could play both at their peak individually and work together in the game. So I even think just the story of what they went through this year, it makes perfect sense that they're just going with these players.
Also for Flame, he was never going to be a long-term option for any of the LCK teams, I feel like. I think his career was effectively over by end of this year by him leaving NA.
All right. So we're going to try and get a question on audio here now. I can't unmute them because I am not a mod, but whoever gets unmuted, that would be great.
See, why are we using Discord? What we should do is call through the brilliant AT&T services on the Nines Summoning Insight, which I personally prefer AT&T to Discord myself.
Wait, why don't we do this? Monty, give out your personal phone number and we'll just have them on speaker.
No, how about you do that? So if one of them could
Problem is, if Local gives out his
channel,
number, there are going to be all these people calling up like, that's who that blocked number was who keeps calling me. I was going to say a certain type of person might be saying that.
All right, we're going to talk to Bam Nation, and hopefully this works. Hello?
Hello?
Can y'all hear me?
I can. Yes. We can all hear you.
Hey.
All right. So my real question was, with Uzi being RNG's biggest carry player, how much longer do you think he'll be able to carry RNG to Worlds with all the problem he's getting in his back, arm, and wrist from playing for so long?
Cool question. All right. Thank you very much, Bam Nation. We shall now reply.
So for injuries for esport players, the problematic thing is, if you pull a hamstring, right, or if you break a bone, you know instantly. But for esport players, they just have bad form and they just keep playing and grinding without realizing what kind of effect it's having. And by the time they realize it, they either get immediate treatment or they just are oh, it just kind of stings a little, and they just keep making it worse. So I'm not sure exactly where Uzi's at, but that's been the problem with esport players. They don't recognize that this could be a huge problem.
It also, a lot of the stuff, in order to fix wrists at least, is doing a lot of exercises and push-ups and stuff like that. I don't know if Uzi's doing too many push-ups.
Well, I'll tell you, the one thing he is doing, which is also the other thing they always tell you, which is take time off, is there's the one area that could extend his career, which they've already done in this team, is they always give him the beginning of the spring off, usually until the Chinese New Year, and they just have someone else play those games.
Yep.
Even in the LPL. I mean, by the way, that shows you how important they think Uzi is, that they're willing to sacrifice early split games just to give this guy a rest.
I think it's actually one of the problems with Overwatch, or not Overwatch, with League in general. Because compared, not Freudian slip, because I'm comparing it to Overwatch, in that Overwatch League, at least, we have a discrete season, which this last year ran from February until the end of September. So basically it's the length, 6-7 months of a traditional sports season, which gives players more of a time to rest and heal up and anything else that you have. And so I think what's crazy to me about League of Legends, and what's crazy to me about being a caster for the game too, is it starts in January and then it goes all the way until now. It was the first weekend of November, now it's the second weekend of November. And so what, you get 2 weeks off and then you're right back training for the start of the next year? If you perform in League, you don't have breaks.
Yeah.
It goes January all the way through spring playoffs, MSI, then summer playoffs, then you're playing in maybe play-ins for Worlds as well, depending on where you rank, and then you're going to Worlds, and the best players,
and then All-Stars.
It promotes injury, and All-Stars, if you're a good player, that's a great point, in December. So it literally, your best players are going to get much more injured on this timeline, because for teams that don't make Worlds or don't make MSI, we're talking about literal months of difference of not playing.
can actually be even worse for Chinese teams, but this is another area where actually, as I've alluded to, basically RNG themselves have known this for years. So another reason why if you're in China it can be worse is, remember in the off-season, they always have a Demacia Cup.
Yeah.
Like, they have extra tournaments as well, but luckily, that's another area where actually RNG have shown a tendency to play the sub-AD carry. And remember, luckily in China, like they had a guy, Abel, who was playing instead of Uzi at one point. He was actually a brilliant player himself. Like, even their third string ADC can sometimes be stud that you can actually play the game still.
Well, and the argument in traditional sports is also like, oh, well, in the American League system, like, okay, the NBA playoffs can last a month or more, but it's only a month or more, right? It's not, and they're playing for a shorter regular season. So they're always, with any playoff team, there's always, and star players, there will always be a chance of more injury just because you're playing more games. But I think in this case, like, it really shows a flaw within the system of League of Legends. And does anybody even like Spring Split? Like,
it's a problem.
Just Origin maybe. That's about it.
like Spring Split. I think at this point in time, you could just make one longer split and just eliminate Spring Split entirely and just break it up midway with MSI and just have a shorter season.
Then it would actually be a mid-season invitation.
Exactly. Anyway.
No one cares about their star players quite like TSM does, giving Gearson a break last 2 years.
We went a little crazy with that off of the Uzi question, but I think in general it shows like concern for people in Uzi's position. All right, we're gonna have another question here from Downfeet. So I think we're good to go with this.
And is it for a picture of
Downfeet?
Is that what he asked for?
Big Tarantino fan. He's not unmuted. Hello, Downfeet. I know you can hear me.
Even the concept of having a talk show where idiots can just call in, what a stupid idea that is. Like, let's just us provide the interesting analysis. Like, we can talk about the game ourselves. I mean, I get if you couldn't talk about it, you'd have to, right? Never mind, actually.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry about that.
Hello?
No, Downfeet
Hello?
is still
I think he's on.
Not unmuted.
No, never mind.
Not unmuted. So
I got excited there.
We did get excited.
It was just the little devil on my shoulder.
We'll work this out. We'll work this out. All the kinks out by now.
Do you have an angel or do you have two? What is it, devils?
Well, my joke is, because I always say this in CS:GO. In CS:GO, Moses is my angel, right? Like, it's him, and then usually it's someone else. I won't say who it is on the other shoulder saying all the evil stuff. And then someone once said that, but Moses sometimes has harsh jokes. I was like, yeah, because it's all relative, you know. Compared to like DDK, Moses is the devil on his shoulder. And he only has two angels on his, so... No, put it this way, I've already been really good on this show. You don't know how many jokes I, like, deleted from my brain. So many jokes. About countries, about chemicals people can consume, about activities that consenting adults take part in that just isn't appropriate for this show. I thought I heard someone there. Did someone get unmuted?
Bro Review, welcome.
Hello?
Yes, you're just giggling. You're just giggling. But you can talk.
Oh, maybe not. You know what? Phone's out for everyone. Next call. Who's the next caller? I'm vetoing that one. Next caller.
Yes, we're here. What's your question, Bro Review?
Why are you guys so nice to Loco today?
Well, you know, it was a first show. We really have to get him committed to the show before we get really mean to him.
What's that thing called? Where
You got to bait before you switch. You know?
What's that thing called where if you're in like, if you get abused enough, then like you start...
Stockholm Syndrome.
Yeah, Stockholm Syndrome. Stockholm Syndrome only works if there's like a period of time where you have to get committed to the abuser.
Problem with that is no one knows the reference point. That's such an old school one. I call it TSM Jungler Syndrome. You get abused so much that eventually you think it's your fault, and any little speck of like nice behavior, you just, and Andy actually even paid my salary. Yeah, he honored the contract. He must be a good guy. All right.
All right.
Christmas is hard at the local household. I don't know, man.
While we wait for another one, a question here. We'll answer one in text from Starfire. Do you think Cloud9 could perform better against G2 and Griffin with Deftly in the lineup instead of Sneak?
Oh God, Daniel's gonna love this one.
The problem I have with that is like, definitely, in theory, his strength is laning, right? But I don't think that's really going to matter against Viper and against Perks. It's probably not that much of a difference. So in a weird way, I sort of would prefer they have Sneaky in, because if they can somehow get to team fights, I at least know he can do his job there. And he is a player, as we've said, who he has performed better in pressure matches than sometimes he does on an everyday stage. So I would just, if I'm a Cloud9 fan, just hope Sneaky holds up. Like, just I don't think taking him out is the right approach, especially not for someone who's barely played for your team.
I hate the trial by fire approach, especially at Worlds. It's so crazy. I don't know why teams do this so often. Do you guys remember Looper that one year, like Looper.A, where Looper, his first game was at Worlds? Yeah, I think definitely is a good player with potential and with upside. And I think long-term, C9 is betting on definitely to improve. But at Worlds, let Sneaky play. Sneaky has the experience, and we talked about Sneaky Worlds buff. Like, let's see what Sneaky has before we sub him out.
And as you say, it's just unfair to Deathly, actually. Like, if he plays anything less than excellent, fan can either say, well, either I'd rather have seen Sneaky and seen how he did, or even worse, just say, I guess Deathly's rubbish. And in that scenario, like, you're just throwing him in the deep end there.
Recall a situation from last year.
He should be allowed to have a whole year to build in a Worlds. And if
Yeah.
he qualifies for Worlds of his own steam, then cool, do it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think we have somebody else in here. 011. Are you here with us? 011.
I am here with you guys.
Excellent.
Right.
What do you got?
I have a question.
How do you guys think IG is going to do this year?
IG, how are IG going to do this year? I think, actually, I alluded to it before, because obviously I picked them to come first in that group. Problem I have with them as a team is, like, I watched the LPL, and they weren't a good team in the LPL. I thought they were very, very underwhelming. Basically, I don't think it's even an exaggeration. I know it sounds like a narrative article storyline, but from the moment after they lost to Team Liquid, they've never looked the same since. Before that, they literally were on course to be like a contender for greatest team to ever play a league with the talent they had in their team. But that's the key thing. They still have the talent. And when you have players like the Shy and Wookie, like even just one of these players hitting anything close to their form, doesn't have to be the whole team. That can be enough. You could do some amazing things off that alone.
You know, we're talking about G2 doing the Grand Slam, Spring, MSI, Summer, Worlds. IG could have been doing that. Spring, MSI, Summer, Worlds, but they got thrown off course by Team Liquid.
Yeah. Agreed.
I'm just bearish on them. Like, obviously there is a universe where we see the Shy and Rookie return to last year Worlds form, right? But I just think recently, based just on recent performance, it hasn't been that impressive. They're lucky to even be at Worlds, frankly, with the results that they were having.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I'm just going to go ahead and not bet on that. But you know, I'm not saying it can't happen.
My problem, I guess this ties into something that's a general peeve I have about League, is that because you have a different patch that you play at Worlds than you play in the rest of the year, and because it's so many months ago that you even won the spring split, the summer split rather, it's months and months ago now, and if you didn't go through a gauntlet, you might have just been sat for weeks, maybe even by the time you get to the playoffs, 2 months before you've played in another playoff series. Like, that reset, I can tell you coming from a game like CSGO, when we just have the player break for 3 weeks, all the teams' levels go back to almost nothing and they build up again. So when you come to tournaments like Worlds, the reason I think, as well as for aspects like no losers bracket, best of ones, regions that you've never played before, another factor that plays into it definitely for me is no one knows what form someone's going to come into. So if you go to that world where we all reduce back to the level of the players and then build up from practice, they have a brilliant set of players to build up from if they're going to reset.
That's true.
You know.
And they've had time, too, with the boot camping and everything that's been going on, so...
Oh, that's another aspect as well that we didn't mention, by the way, and a very unique detail that was nothing like past eras. Right? So you know what I always used to tell you my theory was? I always used to think actually teams like TSM and Cloud9 almost wrecked themselves because they were so eager to get the practice in the boot camp against the Korean teams. They basically trained the Korean teams to everything they're good at. Well, the difference this time is the Asian teams have practiced in their own little world, and the European and NA teams have practiced in Europe. So we're actually going to have a scenario where the meta that starts the tournament could be amazing.
Yeah,
could
it'll be wacky.
Counter.
And that, I think that was, we've talked about this on the show, before, but like, that is one of the most interesting things about this World is because that divide is existing. We're entering a space where teams are going to be on very different pages when they start the tournament.
What do you think about that, Loco?
I think some of it is Asian arrogance because the Asian teams could have gone to Europe.
Sure.
And regarding, I mean, since what happened last year at Worlds and what happened at MSI, I think there is a good case for the Asian teams should have gone to Worlds and actually trained with. It's going to be really weird because I think the unique teams are G2, the unique teams are Fnatic, and the Asian teams don't get to see that. They do bring their own flair, but I think there was more to learn from the Eastern teams than from the Western teams.
Like, listen, the splices, I'd even throw Team Liquid in. Like, you can kind of tell from the VODs how those teams are going to play. Like, you could just sit in your region and say, well, don't give them advantage. But I would actually say this year it flips. Like, if I'm teams like RMG, I'd like to have played against this Fnatic team and see what they do level 1. I'd like to see what's it like to play G2 when they pick all those crazy champions and just skirmish you. I want to know that before I play them in the real game.
Sure. All right, so we do have Downfeed in here now. Can you hear us? Downfeed?
Hey.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey. So my question was actually, how do you justify greatness
as a player become great when he has a couple of decent tournaments, like Benji, for example, when he was good enough in season 3, 5, and 6, or he need to have a godlike performance like Dante in season 4.
Wait a second, 1 second. Are you from Greece by any chance?
Yes.
Yeah, I can tell because it's incomprehensible what you said. I'm used to talking forgiven, okay? I don't know Greek, but the one part we missed was I didn't hear the name of the player.
He said Bengi in season.
Bengi and Dandy.
Bengi versus Dandy in terms of, let me get this.
Player.
Like adequate performance as a jungler, like a supportive performance versus like a carry performance like Dandy?
I see, okay. Is it which is better of the two? Say it again.
It's just an example you can take, like Marin, who had one really good tournament, in contrast to Smeb, who was consistently a lot of them, but maybe not as good as Marin as that Worlds that year.
Smeb, did you say was that one? Yeah.
Yes. So there are a lot of players like that. Like Crown had a godlike 6 Worlds, and there are mid laners that are consistent but not as good as that one Worlds that Crown had.
Square root of Worlds times.
So what's the question?
How you justify greatness? Do you
how
have to be consistent?
Oh, okay. Okay, so I'll reformulate this. Basically, like the Dandy Bengi one's a great example. Is it better, like when you talk about greatness,
like the peak?
Is it better to win all the
consistent-
tournaments and all that, or is it better to be the guy where whether you won them all or not, like individually, everyone will go, "Well, you were just the absolute best."
And also longevity.
How do you weigh that? Oh, yeah, and also, is it great, as you said with Marin? Is it great to have one great tournament? Dandy obviously didn't do much after 2014.
Yep.
Or is it better to be like Bengi, where you might not have been the best player, but you were there many, many times. You're in position. So I think there's a pretty wide open question. Where do you come down on this, Loco?
So for me, I think longevity in terms of greatness matters so much. Like we talk about Faker as the greatest player of all time, and I think longevity has so much to do with it, more so than peak, because League is a game that's changing every single year, right? And you're expected to do different things, especially from a lane like mid lane, where there's so many different types of champions played. So yes, peak does matter, and I probably would never put a player that's never won Worlds as the greatest player ever, but the longevity and being able to adapt is what really defines a great League of Legends player. It might be different in other games, especially games like Counter-Strike, StarCraft, where the games don't change as much, but in League of Legends, like longevity and the ability to adapt is peak greatness for me.
I think that's true in most cases. I'm not sure if I would qualify Bengi as one of the greatest junglers of all time, even though he won multiple world championships and numerous titles in Korea, just because first off, he was a very limited player.
He played with Faker.
Here's the problem.
He played with
right?
Faker.
Is could Bengi have won a Worlds in any other team? Probably not. Right?
No.
Well, that's probably to me. You can't be a great player.
Yeah,
That's the case. You know, like I could put Faker, I could put Dandy in any team, and you potentially could do it. You know.
Yeah. I generally side with you, Loco, just because this game changes so much year to year that longevity is probably the better. It's the better marker, but that doesn't mean like I would definitely say Dandy was better than Bengi, even though
he only has one World.
Yeah.
Luckily, I would say this: like to me, longevity should only be applied as a tiebreaker. Like, for example, you can't only have longevity as your factor. So the example I always used to give with that is like, just because Dyrus and Sneaky have played forever doesn't mean they're automatically better than someone who was godlike for 2 years, because they were never at his level. But if you're talking about two players who've played like really great years, and then one has longevity as well, that's a pretty good tiebreaker. So for me, I think it's actually quite lucky in League of Legends as a game. Most of the greatest players of all time have both. So you don't need to really have that like dilemma. Like we've never really actually had, like he gave like Dandy as an example. Dandy had a couple of good years. There actually aren't that many examples of one person who's like a flash in the pan, ultra godlike for 1 year, and then completely falls off. It's not that many really.
Dade was kind of that.
He was kind of one of the only ones.
2014, yeah.
I think Marin's also a good one. He peaked, and then he never had the same kind of
I don't
peak.
even think Marin would.
I don't think he was as great a player as people ever thought.
I agree with that entirely.
What?
I don't think he was that great in 2015.
Really?
Yeah.
Just look at the team Smeb had, just look at the team Sunday had, and then look at the team that Marin had. All you need to know is this. Marin got the bus off to China, and they won 2 Worlds, like another Worlds without him. No, they didn't win any without him.
Right.
They won with Duke next year. They won Worlds without him.
All right, we're to do.
Not hitting, I'm just saying.
We're to do one more question here. So sorry, guys. I know there's been a lot of questions. Appreciate it. So this is from Starfire, Duke of Thought. Who wants it?
We already had the Starfire guy, didn't we? We did one of this. So do the Duke guy, I guess.
All right, Duke of Thought. What's up, man?
Yeah, Duke of Thought, me.
Yes,
that's you.
What can we do for you?
Yeah, so my question is, what categories would you use to create a top 20 list? LS values, mechanics greatly,
Yes.
while others value intangibles. So I'm curious what you view as the essentials of a great player.
I basically kind of addressed this in the opener to actually a video I put out today. So the basic premise goes like this. There's like 3 ways I've noticed generally as a theme of criteria that you can choose from as to how people did these lists. You either did it based on like today, who are the 20 best players now, so that's current form. Or you take the Fakers and the Uzi Eyes of the world and you say, greatness historically, who were the greatest players coming in? Or the third one, as he said with LS, is you just ask yourself, not even talking about the competitive side of League, is just as an individual, like skilled player in League, who are the best. So for example, LS, one of his, to other people, it will seem very unorthodox, reasons as to why he put Tarzan at the top wasn't just that he thought Tarzan was the best jungler, but he says that in solo queue, Tarzan can play like mid, another role at like a good level.
Sure. Very LS criteria.
Which, that's obviously his own idiosyncrasy there. But the whole point is it's a consistent criteria. So basically, where do you come down on it for a list like this?
So what I think I would do if I was making this top 20 list is I would first identify what I thought the highest impact role was, because the point of it is in any given meta. So I would look at the patch or whatever, and I would say, in this meta, in what we've seen so far, what's the ranking of roles that I would have? And then you have rankings of players within those roles, right? And there may be some intangible levels. Like if I know a player is a shot caller, I might like bias towards that because.
Do you include intangibles from yours?
Shot calling mostly only. Maybe I might say something like with Khan, I'll be like, well, he historically chokes. Sure. Like we know he does that. But there's always, that's more of like the bonus or the caveat to it. But I would say mostly like I would look at the power of roles, because if the purpose of the list is to say, here are the players coming in and where we should expect them to be in this meta, you have to consider their impact on the game with the current champion pool and the current role strength.
Yeah, I think my criteria was mechanics, flexibility, if they can play weak side, strong side. So someone like Nuguri who can only play strong side should be ranked a little lower. Consistency, how consistent are you? And also efficiency. So someone like Huni, right? Huni looks great and Huni's carrying a lot of games, but he gets so much resource funneled into him. So I don't think he gives as much for the amount of resource he gets. So I also accounted for like, how much resource are you getting and how much are you able to get back?
Right. For my criteria, I think personally, the most interesting list is if you just do who you think the best are right now in today's game. If you started today, who would be the players most likely to perform? Because I actually think it fulfills the purpose of the list, which is people who don't watch every region want to know, like, who are the good players? Who should I look out for? Like, for example, if someone sees the list and I do it based on current form, they're going to have all these interesting questions that can make them have a way better world. So, for example, if they see on my list, as I would have Jackie Love above Uzi I, they're going to go, I don't understand though, Uzi I at Worlds, like Jackie Love, you even said he wasn't the main carry. And the whole point is, I describe it like this. Some people make these lists, and for them, the list is the end of the discussion. It's like, right, well, I put this guy number 3. Oh, it's crazy, man, like XQC reaction there. But what you actually want to do, in my opinion, is the list should be the start of the discussion. You start with where you are on the list, and that provokes all the interesting topics. So to me, having it just of who the best players are now you can say, well, why would Jackie Love be? You know, it starts a great discussion, I think.
Well, also, that's an evolving discussion as the tournament happens about why somebody is over or underperforming based on where you thought they were at the start, right? Because this is the thing to remember about Worlds is these lists are very difficult because it's such a long tournament. It's like 6 weeks long, right? So a lot will change in the meta.
So also another thing is it's a prediction piece. It's not a historical piece. It's not like NFL at the end of the season where you do top 100 players and you're ranking them on what happened. You're predicting which 20 players are going to be the most impactful, is going to be the most relevant. So I like it a lot better that way.
Right. The only thing is, we're not going to do like the old Summoning Insight and just let this run forever till everyone hates each other.
And stop it randomly.
Exactly, yeah.
Stop it randomly.
This will actually have an outro.
This is the first time we've ever done an outro, I think. So thank you guys for calling very much. We will keep doing this for the show, so just bear that in mind. Thanks for watching. We haven't done this in a while. I hope you guys enjoyed everything with the production and us being in person. It's been pretty fun. Thanks to Dominate and GoldenGlue for coming on. Please follow this Twitch channel. We will be doing this more often. So we were going to be doing this for Worlds. The next time we will be on is after 3 days of groups on the 14th. Follow the Cloud9 Twitch channel. So here's our schedule, 14th, 2 p.m. So for you European viewers like Downfeet, who is up at God knows what hour in Greece right now, we'll be 4 hours earlier to accommodate your schedule, which means we'll be pretty close to the end of the games on some of these days in the group stage. So we'll be coming on right after that. The VODs will be on the Insight on Esports YouTube channel, so be sure if you're already subscribed to that, great. We'll also have clips up on the C9 channel. And we also need you guys to give us those memes, so hashtag the nines on Twitter. All of us will be tweeting out the pictures we took earlier for you guys to Photoshop on the green screen or what have you. So submit your memes via hashtag the nines. You can submit any meme, but we will give you pictures to have fun with. And we will see you again on the 14th. Thank you very much for watching the Nines Summoning Insight presented by AT&T.
I don't thank you, just goodbye. From the lords to the pleb. 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 From the lords to the pleb.